Part 51. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 502. This is really the breath of Jean Dao realm. He, really broke through Jean Dao realm. He was seriously injured just now. How could he suddenly break through? This is too incredible, right? Li Kuei actually broke through Jean Dao realm. The disciples around were shocked. They almost suspected that they were hallucinating. How could Li Kuei break through? You know, Li Kuei was seriously injured just now and was on the verge of death. According to common sense, his foundation was unstable and it would be more difficult to break through. But Li Kuei broke through. What is going on? No. Impossible. You can't break through Jean Dao realm. Li Minghui's face twitched violently, and he was so scared that he trembled all over and almost collapsed. Li Minghui was very clear about Li Kuei's state just now. That state was not the state of breakthrough at all. How could he suddenly break through? This is too unreasonable. Boom. Just as Li Minghui was shocked, Li Kuei's momentum became even more terrifying, like a prehistoric beast awakening, fierce and unmatched, shaking the square. Crack. The crisp sound of Li Minghui's 5-finger bones breaking spread, and his entire right arm was instantly deformed and twisted. The pain was unbearable, and Li Kuei successfully broke free from Li Minghui's control. Bang! Li Kuei kicked out with one leg, and with a muffled bang, Li Minghui was knocked out on the spot and fell on the edge of the ring. No one expected this sudden change, and everyone was stunned. No one thought that such a change could happen when Li Minghui had the upper hand. Li Minghui fell to the ground, blood oozing from the corners of his mouth, and he was extremely embarrassed. Cough cough, puff. Li Minghui struggled to get up from the ground, covered his chest, and spit out another mouthful of blood, his face as pale as paper. What's wrong with your strength? Did you cheat? Li Minghui stared at Li Kuei angrily and asked, obviously suspecting that Li Kuei cheated. Humph. You are the one who cheated, Li Kuei snorted contemptuously, and then jumped up and pounced on Li Minghui like a cheetah. Damn it! Li Kuei. You dare to cheat? Li Minghui roared in exasperation, and a trace of fear rose in his heart, and he immediately waved his sword to resist. Dang! Dendenden. The two collided, the metal sound was sharp and piercing, the fire was everywhere, and the terrible impact spread. Li Kuei did not move at all, but Li Minghui was shocked back 7 or 8 steps. Puff. Li Minghui spit out a mouthful of blood, staggered a few steps, and then stood firm, his face became paler. Pa. Before he could resume his fighting posture, Li Kuei slapped him with a slap, and directly slapped him away. Puff. Li Minghui spit out a few mouthfuls of blood again, his face was burning and stinging, half of his ear was swollen, blurry, and stars were in his eyes. Asshole, Li Minghui was furious, his eyes were filled with scarlet murderous intent. As soon as the voice fell, Li Minghui frantically urged the true energy to be injected into the sword in his hand, the dazzling blue true energy flashed, the sword energy was rampant, the heart was breathtaking, and the pressure was overwhelming. Li Kuei. Die, Li Minghui suddenly roared, holding the sword and slashing out. Li Minghui's momentum soared wildly, and he attacked Li Kuei frantically one move after another, fierce and ruthless, with sharp and swift moves, completely desperate. A series of piercing sword whistles and dazzling blue sword beams burst out with the power to destroy everything, with a long and unstoppable momentum. Brother Li Kuei, be careful. Although Brother Li Kuei has broken through the realm of Jean Dao, he has just broken through after all, and he is definitely no match for Li Minghui. Brother Li Kuei, don't resist. He has already lost. The disciples of the Iron Hammer sect exclaimed in fear, worrying about Li Kuei. Li Kuei smiled indifferently, not panicking at all because of Li Minghui's crazy attack. On the contrary, he showed a disdainful sarcasm. Li Minghui, you are too slow. Li Kui grinned, and then his figure disappeared from the spot. Then, he rushed forward like lightning, and a fierce kick swept out, bringing a whistling sound of breaking through the air, and a powerful force raging. Bang! Ah! Li Minghui screamed, and the whole person flew backwards in an instant, hitting the wall heavily, and finally fell to the floor, and there was another series of screams. Hiss! Such a terrifying physical strength, senior brother Li Kui kicked him away with one kick. Seeing Li Minghui being kicked away, many disciples' expressions suddenly changed, and they were all frightened and terrified. Li Kui, you hid your cultivation and cheated to beat me, Li Minghui gritted his teeth and said angrily, his eyes full of vicious hatred. Hearing this, Li Kui said disdainfully, I, Li Kui, defeated you fairly. How can you talk about cheating? After the voice fell, Li Kui stepped forward, staring at Li Minghui with cold eyes, and said gloomily, Li Minghui, today I, Li Kui, will let everyone know who is the waste. Li Kui suddenly raised his foot and stepped hard on Li Minghui's left shoulder, saying coldly, remember, waste will always be worthy of being waste. You. Li Minghui opened his mouth, but couldn't say a word. Feeling the severe pain from his shoulder, Li Minghui's face flushed, veins on his forehead bulged, beads of sweat as big as beans rolled down, his face was hideous and extremely scary. Li Kui punched out again, as fast as lightning, containing 100% of his strength, fierce and domineering. With a loud bang, Li Minghui screamed again, his whole face became dark blue and purple, and a severe pain spread throughout his body. With just one move, Li Kui completely deprived Li Minghui of his fighting power. I admit defeat, Li Minghui begged weakly. At this moment, his breath was disordered and his injuries were serious. It was difficult for him to even stand up. If he didn't admit defeat and continued to fight, he would definitely be beaten to death by Li Kui. He didn't want to die so unjustly. You know what's good for you, otherwise you would be dead now. Li Kui retracted his foot, glanced at Li Minghui with cold eyes, and turned away. He could have killed the other party, but the voice in his mind made him stop. Li Kui had no choice but to give up and choose to stop. What a bullshit Xuanhuan City's young genius. Not even worthy of carrying my shoes, Li Kui sneered with disdain, looking at Li Minghui with contempt. Puff, Li Minghui was immediately choked with anger, and he couldn't catch his breath and spurted blood again. Li Kui glanced at Li Minghui with disdain, turned around and walked off the stage. Warm tips: if you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to inform us. We will deal with it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding. Li Minghui's mind was full of fear and despair. At this moment, he felt like an ant, letting himself be slaughtered. Li Kui, don't be too arrogant. You are just bullying me with your high realm. One day I will surpass you. Li Minghui gritted his teeth and growled, his eyes were bloodshot and full of hatred. He would never forget this humiliating scene in his life. You will never have a chance. Li Kui smiled indifferently, and did not stop leaving a word. I will use time to prove that you will always be a waste. Hearing this, Li Minghui felt a strong sense of humiliation and frustration in his heart, and he wished to grind Li Kui to ashes. At this time, a voice suddenly appeared in his mind. Do you want to defeat him? This voice was like the call of the Nine Nether Devil, causing Li Minghui to tremble all over, his heart pounding non-stop, full of excitement. I want to defeat him. I want everyone in the Hammer Gate to submit to me and let them look up to me, Li Minghui shouted excitedly in his heart. Very good, the strange voice smiled with satisfaction. From now on, I will give you power. Li Minghui's eyes suddenly widened, and his heart seemed to stop beating. The next second, Li Minghui suddenly found that the skin of his right arm had strange blood-red lines, as if a tiny earthworm was crawling on it, exuding a strange and evil breath. Li Minghui's heart was shocked, and he could clearly perceive that there was a mysterious power in his body that was stirring and growing rapidly, and the speed was very fast. What a strange power, it can actually increase my strength. Feeling the gradually expanding power in his body, Li Minghui's heart was shocked and shocked. Li Minghui was confused and couldn't help asking, "Senior, who are you?" When he wanted to ask something else, he found that the voice had disappeared. Li Minghui's heart moved slightly. He looked at the direction where Li Kuei was leaving the stage calmly. The hatred in his eyes was like substance, with a hint of resentment. "Li Kuei, just wait and see, sooner or later I will defeat you. Wash away the shame." Li Minghui said secretly, then took a deep breath to suppress his rage, staggered out of the ring, and limped and looked quite embarrassed. The disciples watching under the ring were stunned. Li Kuei actually won, and won so beautifully, and even humiliated Li Minghui. I really didn't expect that Li Kuei's strength after the breakthrough was so terrible, completely suppressing Li Minghui. It was simply wonderful. Ha ha. I said Li Minghui would lose, now you believe it? Many disciples talked about it, looking at Li Kuei with envy and admiration. Li Kuei's breakthrough caused a huge commotion, and many disciples rushed to the ring, wanting to see how Li Kuei defeated Li Minghui. On the ring, Li Kuei stood proudly with a smug smile on his face. But only he knew that the power just now did not belong to him at all, but came from the voice in his mind. Li Kuei was full of doubts. How could there be the owner of that voice in my body? Who is he? He was puzzled. Congratulations to brother Li Kuei for advancing to the next round. I'm going to rest first. A female disciple smiled sweetly at Li Kuei, and then retreated gracefully. Seeing this, many female disciples around him cast admiring eyes on Li Kuei. Li Kuei had to temporarily put aside his confusion and began to practice to consolidate the joy brought by the victory just now. On the other side, Zhang Luoshan looked at Qin Mu, somewhat puzzled. "Master, why do you both give them power?" She originally thought that the master was impressed by Li Kuei's tenacious character, so he gave him power to make him stronger. But what Zhang Luoshan didn't expect was that the master inexplicably gave Li Minghui power, allowing that guy to have the power to fight Li Kuei. This made her a little puzzled. Hearing this, Qin Mu smiled playfully and asked back, "Guess." "Luoshan is stupid." Zhang Luoshan shook her head, and her pretty face was full of doubts and confusion. Qin Mu's mouth curled slightly, and he smiled faintly. "Have you ever heard of raising gu?" Zhang Luoshan frowned slightly, a little confused. "Put several poisonous insects together, and then feed them once every half a month, they will fight and devour each other," Qin Mu said. "When the rest of the poisonous insects are eaten, the strongest one left will become the new king and dominate one side." So the master's goal is to cultivate the most powerful poisonous insects. Zhang Luoshan suddenly realized that she finally knew what the master was going to do. However, Qin Mu shook his head and said with a smile, "No, I want to cultivate them all into the most powerful poisonous insects." Zhang Luoshan couldn't help but take a breath of cold air when he heard it. His eyes flickered, and he said, "Master, are you planning to, all the monks participating in this celebration?" "Hush." Qin Mu stretched out his index finger and put it on his lips, chuckled and said, "Dakin wants to unify the 9 regions of the human race. This is the only way and the only choice. I'm just following the trend." Hearing Qin Mu's words, Zhang Luoshan was silent for a moment. She knew that the master wanted more than just to unify the human race. He also has the ambition to conquer the 4 seas and 8 wildernesses, but this cannot be achieved overnight. Therefore, the master wants to use this method to hone the young disciples of the major sects, so that they can improve their strength as much as possible, and control them in the process. If Dakin can unify the entire continent in one fell swoop, then this will be a historic scene, laying the foundation for Dakin's great cause. Master. Zhang Luoshan looked at the master with more admiration. The master was really far-sighted and had a huge layout. At this time, the battles on other arenas had also ended one after another. There were a total of 1,000 arenas in the entire square, and each battle was carried out on 1,000 arenas at the same time. When the 1,000 people finished fighting, it was the turn of the next batch. And Zhang Luoshan, Ji Hongii and other women were also in this batch. Master, I'm going, Zhang Luoshan said respectfully. Go, remember, end the battle in the shortest time, the shorter the better, Qin Mu said lightly. Yes, Master, Zhang Luoshan nodded, and then jumped onto the arena. Girl, you look pretty tender, but unfortunately you met me, you are doomed to be defeated. On the stage, a young man in yellow robe sneered jokingly, holding a treasure fan with a condescending attitude. You talk too much nonsense. Zhang Luoshan spat out a few words indifferently, then stomped her jade feet on the ground, turned into a blue afterimage, and instantly appeared in front of the young man in yellow robe, slashing with a sword. Bang! The young man couldn't even resist, his chest was shattered, and he died on the spot, and died miserably. Seeing this scene, everyone was stunned, staring at Zhang Luoshan in disbelief. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 503. The ring was full of blood, and the pungent smell of blood filled the air, shocking everyone for a long time. Killed instantly with one sword, no suspense. There was nothing else on the ring except the corpse, as if no one had ever appeared here, leaving Zhang Luoshan's figure on the ring. She put away her sword, turned around, and left. The tens of thousands of people watching outside the ring were silent, and everyone stared with their eyes wide open, unbelievable. The next moment. Hiss. In an instant, countless gasps sounded at the scene, and everyone stared with their eyes wide open, feeling like they were in a dream, so unreal. What is going on? What happened just now? I think she didn't seem to use her spiritual power at all, and she killed the other party with one sword with only the strength of her physical body. This is simply unreasonable. One move. Just one move killed a cultivator in the Zhandao realm. This scene had a great impact on everyone, causing the entire square to fall into silence, and you could hear a pin drop. This. Soon someone recognized Zhang Luoshan, and couldn't help swallowing his saliva. His eyes widened and he said in horror, she seems to be from Dakin. Instantly, the whole square exploded, and countless noises resounded through the sky, boiling. That is a being with the realm of Zhandao. He was killed with one move. What a fast speed, what kind of swordsmanship is this? It's so weird that I can't catch her trace at all. How did she do it? She killed the enemy so quickly. Did I make a mistake? How could her strength be so strong? I didn't even see her movements clearly, and the young man was killed in seconds. She must have hidden her strength, otherwise how could she kill a warrior in the realm of Zhandao in one move? The crowd was extremely shocked and talked a lot. Their expressions were stiff and sluggish, their heads were in a mess, and their eyes looking at Zhang Luoshan were full of deep fear. The referee below the ring was also shocked and stunned, and was obviously frightened by Zhang Luoshan's sword. He imagined what would happen if he had blocked that sword just now. The result made him tremble all over and sweat coldly, because he had no chance of winning at all. Once hit by that sword, no matter how strong his defense was, he would probably die on the ring. He took a deep breath, relieved his nervousness, and shouted to the stage, Dakin Zhang Luoshan wins. After that, he hurried down to deal with post-war matters and clean the ring. Countless people looked at the lonely and beautiful figure on the ring with awe. What kind of power is this Dakin? Why did it suddenly rise? Why did it cultivate such a monster? Someone frowned and wondered. Yes, Zhang Luoshan's talent is too terrifying. People of the same age are so different from her. They are not geniuses of the same level at all. I suspect she has entered the realm of saints, another person echoed. I think she is at most 20 years old. She actually has the cultivation of a saint, someone showed an unbelievable look, and couldn't believe it. Such qualifications are enough to rival the saints and saints of the four holy places. And she is still so young. As long as time passes, she will definitely surpass the saints and saints of the major holy places. The crowd was talking, all shocked by Zhang Luoshan's sword, and many people have become more and more interested in Dakin. Zhang Luoshan. The genius of Dakin is beginning to show its potential. I really look forward to the next ring match. Under the ring, Ji Tianming, Ye Bufan and others also looked unhappy, and obviously did not expect Zhang Luoshan to have such a terrifying performance. This little girl. Ji Tianming's eyes condensed slightly, a ray of brilliance flashed in his eyes, and he muttered to himself. Young master, what kind of sacred place is Dakin? I have never heard of it before, but it can actually cultivate such a demon of the heaven-defying level. The girl next to Ji Tianming frowned and asked in a deep voice. I don't know. Ji Tianming shook his head. He didn't know the origin of Zhang Luoshan, but there was an inexplicable sense of crisis lingering in his heart. Ye Bufan stared at the beautiful figure on the stage, a gloomy smile appeared on the corner of his mouth, and he said indifferently, I want to see how much weight your great Qin has. On the other stage, Xuanhuan encountered some troubles. Her opponent was a woman. The other party was dressed in purple, with a slender figure, fair skin, beautiful face, delicate and flawless features, long hair casually scattered, and fair and delicate skin, like a carved mutton fat jade. This girl has a stunning beauty, and her every move is noble and elegant, which makes people can't help but surrender and worship. She stood in place, surrounded by hazy mist, like a fairy, out of the world, making people hold their breath and concentrate. Xuanhuan frowned slightly, her beautiful eyes staring at the girl in front of her, her expression gradually becoming serious. She could clearly sense the girl's strength, even through the mist. She still felt a huge sense of oppression, as if she was facing a prehistoric beast. The woman in front of her was not a weakling, but a genuine saint. Saint realm. Xuanhuan said in a low voice, a look of surprise appeared on her pretty face. She never thought that she would actually run into a strong person in the saint realm. And she is only half a step away from the saint realm. Because she had been in charge of the Kangyu dynasty for a long time before, and did not follow Qin Mu, she had the least number of dual cultivations, so her strength did not keep up with the pace, and there was a big gap with other women. Miss, please teach me. Xuanhuan bowed her hands, with a humble attitude. Please, the woman uttered a word lightly, her beautiful eyes were full of longing, her temperament was ethereal, and she exuded a fairy spirit. Boom! Xuanhuan stomped her feet hard, and the arena instantly exploded and collapsed, turning into wood chips flying all over the sky. Her figure rushed out violently, carrying violent power to attack the purple-clothed woman. She was wearing a black dress, her long black hair dancing in the wind, her phoenix eyes shining like stars, and her whole body was filled with a cold breath, like a witch, and like a banished fairy. Facing Xuanhuan's fierce and domineering attack, the woman was not afraid. She gently raised her lotus-like slender arms and waved them gently, and the air seemed to stop flowing. Bang, bang, bang. In an instant, Xuanhuan and the purple-clothed woman clashed fiercely, and a violent collision sound came from the void, and a circle of ripples visible to the naked eye spread out. The purple-clothed woman's breath was ethereal and dreamy. Every blow contained terrifying power. A gorgeous golden glow bloomed on her fists and feet, as if cast from gold, containing destructive power, crushing the power Xuanhuan exerted on herself. Relying solely on physical strength, Xuanhuan fell into a disadvantage and could not gain an advantage at all. The purple-clothed woman's body was extremely terrifying, and her strength was even more terrifying. Even the cultivators of the same level of the saint realm might not be her opponents. This purple-clothed woman is worthy of being a genius and powerful person in the saint realm. Her physical strength alone is enough to crush me, Xuanhuan said in shock. She quickly gathered her mind and mobilized the spiritual energy in her body. Her body shook violently, and a terrifying energy whistled out, turning into sharp blades, cutting through the void, tearing apart the airwaves, and strangling the purple-clothed woman. The purple-clothed woman's face changed slightly, and she immediately used her spiritual power to resist, but the dense and piercing sharp blades were too powerful and forced her back. What a terrible attack! If I hadn't used the spiritual energy shield in time, I would have suffered a loss just now, the purple-clothed woman exclaimed. She never expected that Xuanhuan's attack would be so terrible, and the speed was so fast that she couldn't defend herself. Although you are very strong, you will definitely lose today, Xuanhuan said lightly. As soon as the voice fell, she urged the spiritual energy again to rush towards the purple-clothed woman, and her moves became more and more fierce and fierce. Seeing this, the purple-clothed woman immediately stabilized her body, reacted quickly, and met Xuanhuan's attack. Bang, bang, bang. A series of explosions were heard, and the two women fought fiercely, inseparable, and the scene was quite hot. It must be admitted that Xuanhuan was very experienced in combat. Even under the full strength attack of the purple-clothed woman, she could still barely compete and not be defeated. However, they could not do anything to each other. This girl's talent is indeed strong. There are few rivals among her peers. I wonder which disciple she is. She seems to be from the Great Qin. I just saw her walk out of the queue of those women. Oh? She is from the Great Qin Empire? This is a bit tricky. Many people in the audience were talking about it, and they couldn't help but frown. Although they had never heard of the Great Qin before, it was obvious that after what happened today, they would never underestimate this force again. After all, their Great Qin Lord has become a quasi-emperor, how could he be an ordinary existence? On the ring, Xuanhuan and the purple-clothed woman were still fighting fiercely. Both of them were getting braver and braver, and they were completely angry. Miss G, you and I are both top talents of the younger generation. Let's stop here. If you continue like this, you will get hurt, the purple-clothed woman reminded. Upon hearing this, Xuanhuan immediately said in a delicate voice, "Stop here? It's easy for you to say. If it were you, would you admit defeat?" As she spoke, her offensive became more fierce and crazy, showing an indomitable and domineering attitude, vowing to kill her opponent. In this case, I can only learn from Miss G's high skills. The purple-clothed woman did not dare to neglect it, and immediately activated her skills and went all out to attack. In an instant, a terrifying and vast majesty spread out, covering the entire square, causing everyone's face to change slightly, and their hearts to palpitate inexplicably, as if they were being stared at by some terrifying force. Under the terrifying pressure released by the purple-clothed woman, Xuanhuan's pretty face suddenly changed, and a trace of panic flashed in her beautiful eyes. In an instant, the purple-clothed woman's breath suddenly rose several times, like a flood bursting through a dam, rolling and rushing. What kind of skill is this? Seeing the other party's momentum rising steadily, Xuanhuan was stunned, and a trace of fear flashed in her eyes. Miss Xia, it's not too late to admit defeat now, otherwise it will be too late to regret it later, the purple-clothed woman smiled lightly, her tone gentle. Humph, it's impossible for me to admit defeat. Xuanhuan's eyes were firm, and she gritted her teeth. The surrounding spiritual energy surged, condensing into 365 spiritual swords, each of which was full of sharp energy, giving people a feeling of being indestructible. Then let's try it. The purple-clothed woman looked calm, and her jade hand flicked her sleeves. Suddenly, a huge monster appeared in the void, covering the sky and the sun, standing in the void like a mountain, exuding an ancient and vicissitudes of life. Looking at the towering stone tablet, Xianxu's expression was stagnant, and a look of horror flashed in her eyes. This. Xianxu couldn't help swallowing her saliva. She clearly felt the heavy and majestic feeling revealed by the stone tablet, as if it could suppress everything. Boom! With a loud noise, the stone tablet suddenly fell down, bringing a heavy sense of oppression, as if it was going to collapse the entire world. So heavy, Xianxu's heart twitched fiercely. She tried her best to urge the spiritual power to inject into the spiritual sword. The spiritual sword burst out with a dazzling light, piercing the sky, as if it was going to pierce the sky. The next moment, 365 spiritual swords roared out with monstrous sword intent, trying to fight with the stone tablet. Boom! The stone tablet fell down with a force of 10,000 pounds, and the space trembled fiercely, and then Xianxu's figure fell rapidly downwards. Xianxu tried her best to resist, but still couldn't stop the stone tablet from coming. In the end, she was hit hard by the stone tablet, spitting out blood and losing her breath. After the stone tablet hit Xianxu, it didn't stop, but continued to smash down. Boom! Another roar was heard, and Xianxu fell directly into the ring, bleeding all over, with a very disordered and weak breath. The purple-clothed woman landed on the edge of the ring, looking down at Xianxu, and smiled contemptuously. "How about it, are you convinced now?" Hearing the purple-clothed woman's question, Xianxu slowly raised her head, staring at the purple-clothed woman, with a cold murderous intent flashing in the depths of her eyes. She looked back at the position of the master. She found that the master was drinking tea lightly, looking out of the way, without any concern at all. Xianxu sighed inwardly, and a bitter smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. She guessed something in her heart. The master didn't intend to intervene in this matter, leaving her to fend for herself. But this was originally her battle, so what if the master helped? "Miss G, I wanted to spare your life, but you are stubborn and can't blame me." The purple-clothed woman shook her head, then took out a long sword and walked slowly towards Xianxu. Puchi! The long sword swung, the cold light was sharp, and it directly pierced Xianxu's left shoulder, and blood sprayed out, instantly dyeing half of her fair skin red. The severe pain spread, and Xianxu groaned, her face became even paler. "Miss G, you lost," the purple-clothed woman said indifferently. Xianxu clenched her teeth and ignored it. She turned her eyes to the direction of the master, and her eyes gradually turned red. "I won't lose to you," Xianxu roared. Her voice was extremely hoarse, and her eyes were scarlet. "Stubborn," the purple-clothed woman frowned, and with a sudden forceful slash of the long sword, a deep scar immediately appeared on Xianxu's right arm. The flesh burst open, shocking. Xianxu screamed, her face was as pale as paper, veins on her forehead throbbed, and her whole body trembled. "Miss G, I'm sorry," the purple-clothed woman said indifferently. The long sword left her body, and she turned around and wanted to leave. The opponent had been completely disabled and had no power to resist. In this case, the referee would judge himself as the winner. Swish! Almost at the moment when the purple-clothed woman turned around, a dazzling silver sword light burst out, tearing through the space and piercing straight at the purple-clothed woman. The purple-clothed woman turned around suddenly, and when she saw the sudden sword light, her pupils contracted violently, and her heart shook violently. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 504. The sword light was too fast and too sharp. She didn't even have a chance to react. She only felt a strong and sharp wind blowing towards her face. She couldn't avoid it at all. The only thing to be thankful for was that the sword light was not aimed at her body, but at the stone tablet on her back. If the stone tablet was not strong enough, she might not have been able to survive the blow just now. Bang! Accompanied by a loud noise, the purple-clothed woman flew backwards and retreated dozens of meters in the air before stabilizing her body. A trace of blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. Obviously, she was slightly injured. The purple-clothed woman wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and looked up. She saw Ji Qingxiu standing on the ring. There were bright blood stains on her body, but her eyes were firm. She refused to bow her head even if she was injured. I said, I haven't lost yet. At this moment, Ji Qingxiu seemed to have become a different person. She was full of domineering aura, and her pair of dark and bright beautiful eyes showed a strong fighting spirit. Although she was injured, she was still indomitable. The purple-clothed woman's expression changed slightly, and a coldness flashed in her eyes. Because they were both women, they sympathized with each other, so she spared the other party and did not kill her. Unexpectedly, this momentary kindness actually made the other party stand up again. When she carefully observed Xie Qingxiu's cultivation again, her beautiful eyes suddenly shrank, and a trace of disbelief flashed in her eyes. At this time, Xie Qingxiu's breath was very weak, and her physique was extremely weak, but her momentum was at its peak, becoming more and more fierce, like a peerless sword, with its sharp edge exposed. What's going on? The purple-clothed woman was secretly puzzled in her heart, staring at Xie Qingxiu, and faintly discovered something, and her pretty face suddenly turned livid. The other party was burning his spirit in exchange for strength in order to compete with her. Damn it, the purple-clothed woman cursed secretly, not expecting the other party to do such a crazy thing to achieve his goal. Burning the spirit is not a small price. Not only will it lose life and potential, but it will also affect the future prospects of cultivation. Are you crazy? You will destroy your foundation, the purple-clothed woman shouted angrily. Even if you win, what's the point? Xie Qingxiu smiled indifferently, with a determined look in her eyes, and said, even if I pay the price of my life today, I will win you. Are you really not afraid of death? The purple-clothed woman asked coldly. Xie Qingxiu's behavior was completely desperate. Of course I am afraid, but compared to death, I am more afraid of losing. I, Xie Qingxiu, will not admit defeat. Xie Qingxiu's tone was sonorous and powerful, and there seemed to be a flame burning in the depths of her eyes, as if it had turned into an obsession. You. The purple-clothed woman was so angry at Xie Qingxiu that her chest rose and fell violently. She had never met such a person who didn't care about the consequences. She was simply crazy. Boom. At this time, Xie Qingxiu stepped forward suddenly, and the whole floor shook violently. Then she uttered a word, kill. Instantly, a terrifying killing intent swept over, and the temperature around suddenly dropped, as if it was a severe winter, and the biting coldness hit people and made them shiver. Ji Qingxiu's body shot towards the purple-clothed woman, and the long sword in her hand burst into a dazzling silver-white light, brilliant and gorgeous, like the moonlight shining down, making people unable to open their eyes. At this moment, the purple-clothed woman felt a huge and unparalleled sense of oppression enveloping her body. Her face froze and she felt difficulty breathing. The killing intent emanating from Xie Qingxiu was too strong, and with a determination to die, she became inexplicably flustered. The purple-clothed woman knew that she could not retreat at this time, otherwise, she would definitely lose. Thinking of this, she took a deep breath, and the true energy in her body surged. A terrifying pressure burst out from her delicate body. At the same time, a spiritual weapon armor appeared in front of her, shining brightly, with strange patterns flowing. She did not dare to neglect it. She waved her jade hand again, and an ancient long sword fell into her hand. The sword body was in an arc shape, with a cold metallic light. The purple-clothed woman waved the ancient long sword, and sword energy crisscrossed, cutting through the space and slashing towards Jikingxiu. The spiritual sword broke the sheath, and a dazzling brilliance bloomed, like the Milky Way pouring down from the sky, gorgeous and boundless. Zheng, the sword energy fell, and Jikingxiu blocked with her long sword. A crisp sound rang out, and the long sword shook violently. The two figures collided in mid-air, and the sound of swords continued to resound through the sky. The figures of the two shuttled in the void at an incredible speed. This is an extremely shocking picture. Two beautiful girls, who are more than 10 years apart in age, are fighting fiercely on the ring, releasing amazing fighting power. This scene was seen by countless people, and their hearts couldn't help but beat. Only when Jikingxiu shook her wrist, the long sword began to rotate, and sword flowers fell one after another. Each sword flower contained extremely terrifying sword intent, as if to seal this area. The purple-clothed woman's face was slightly pale, and a solemn look appeared in her eyes. She was in danger several times just now. If she hadn't relied on her powerful armor to resist the opponent's attack, she would have been injured long ago. And what made her feel the most difficult was that the opponent didn't set up any defense at all, as if he had given up completely, letting the sword energy ravage his body, and he didn't seem to worry about the sword energy hurting himself at all. And she had to consider the opponent's sudden fatal attack. This is a war of attrition. Whoever can't bear it first will die. What a horrible fighting style, dare to gamble with your life, are the people of Dakan so crazy? I don't understand. Do you really want to die together? Is there any punishment for losing? Isn't this too stubborn? You even burn your soul power. Many people frowned in confusion, not understanding why Xiaqingxiu was determined to win this game, even at the cost of her own life. They originally thought that Xiaqingxiu was just fighting on impulse, but now they finally understood that Xiaqingxiu was not impulsive, but was determined to win, not afraid of life and death. This situation is more serious than that of Li Kuei from the Iron Hammer Gate just now. Li Kuei suffered the most skin and internal injuries. And she burned her soul power. If she died, it would be the real demise of the Tao, and there would be no possibility of rescue. Everyone watched the fierce battle on the ring with fear, their heartbeats accelerated, and they were dazzled. They could only barely catch the trajectory of the two people's movement, and even their figures were a little blurred, but the terrifying fluctuations still frightened them. Boom, boom, boom. A dull collision sound came from the ring. Both figures were in a mess, especially Xiaqingxiu, who had several bloodstains on her body, which was shocking. Although the purple-clothed woman was in a slightly better situation, her face was also covered with blood, and she looked extremely embarrassed. There was no trace of noble and elegant posture. An anxious look appeared on the face of the purple-clothed woman. If she continued to delay like this, it would be extremely disadvantageous for her. Xiaqingxiu, you will definitely die if you continue like this. Why do you insist on it? The purple-clothed woman said to Xiaqingxiu, trying to disintegrate Xiaqingxiu's belief. She really couldn't figure it out. It was just a game. She wouldn't die if she lost. Why did she have to fight to the death with her? However, what answered her was Xiaqingxiu's cold eyes. She raised her arms high, and a mighty spiritual power surged from her palms, instantly turning into a long sword, dazzling. At this moment, the whole audience was silent, whether it was the warriors or the onlookers, their eyes were all fixed there. What did they see? Is this, ready to end the battle? Xiaqingxiu looked at the purple-clothed woman with indifference, and said softly, if that's the case, then let's end it all. After that, Xiaqingxiu clenched the spiritual weapon sword in her hand, and the surface of the sword was filled with a faint glow, like the twinkling stars, extremely bright. Galaxy. A crisp voice fell, and the sword in Jikingxiu's hand suddenly became extremely sharp, like a galaxy falling down. The sword light swept the void, and wherever it went, the space seemed to be cut into pieces, revealing a destructive wave, which made people tremble. Everyone felt that there was an infinite force above their heads suppressing them, as if they were going to seal the world. The purple-clothed woman's pupils suddenly shrank. She could feel how terrible the sword was, and it seemed to contain some kind of law, and she had a strong sense of crisis in her heart. 10,000 swords, start! The purple-clothed woman shouted, and a huge sword formation appeared behind her. Endless sword beams gathered together. Then she pointed at Jiqingxiu, and thousands of sword beams shot out at Jiqingxiu, covering the sky and covering her sight. A mocking smile appeared on the corner of Jiqingxiu's mouth. She stepped forward, her long robe fluttering, like a peerless fairy, exuding an ethereal meaning, giving people a sense of transcendence. Swish, swish, swish. Endless sword beams whizzed down, carrying a monstrous killing momentum, wanting to kill Jiqingxiu, making the crowd's expressions freeze there, holding their breath and concentrating. The long sword in Jiqingxiu's hand flew, and brilliant sword lights bloomed out, colliding with thousands of sword beams, making a harsh friction sound, as if to annihilate this space. With a cracking sound, thousands of sword beams shattered in an instant, turning into countless streams of light that scattered in all directions, while Jiqingxiu's body remained straight, without the slightest shake, looking calm and composed. How is it possible? The crowd's hearts twitched fiercely, and their faces were filled with shock. Those were thousands of sword beams, and they were actually blocked by Jiqingxiu? The purple-clothed woman's heart trembled violently. This scene was beyond her expectations. She had never thought that Jiqingxiu could burst out with such a strong power. This move was difficult for her to resist even if she thought it was difficult. It seems that the opponent really wants to win this victory, but it's all. If it goes on like this, my losses will be even greater. The purple-clothed woman sighed in her heart. She knew that if she continued to fight, she would lose even more miserably. Thinking of this, the purple-clothed woman's eyes suddenly condensed, and her body quickly retreated, pulling away from Jiqingxiu, and said, "I admit defeat in this round." She gritted her teeth and spat out the sentence, feeling extremely aggrieved. She, the dignified saint of the Jade Maiden sect, actually lost to an unknown woman. Huh, the people around were stunned when they heard this. The purple-clothed woman actually took the initiative to admit defeat? They were shocked and looked at the purple-clothed woman in amazement, wondering if they had heard it wrong. This is simply incredible. The dignified saint of the Jade Maiden sect actually admitted defeat? Thank you. Jiqingxiu slowly put the sword into the storage ring and said calmly. I hope you can stand to the end with this honor. The purple-clothed woman looked at Jiqingxiu deeply and said solemnly, as if it was a blessing. Then she turned around and left without any pause, elegant and clean, as if she had never participated in today's events. Jiqingxiu was stunned for a moment, then a faint smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. She looked at the purple-clothed woman's receding back and murmured, "Don't worry, I will." After saying that, she looked around the whole place. When she saw Qin Mu's eyes looking at her, her eyes brightened a little and a bright smile appeared on her face. But the next moment, the breath in her body suddenly became violent, her throat rolled, a wisp of bright red blood oozed out of her mouth, her body shook, and she almost fell down. Puff! Jiqingxiu's delicate body trembled violently, and she spit out a mouthful of blood. Her pretty face was as pale as paper, and a flash of pain flashed in her beautiful eyes. She was too exhausted and her injuries worsened. She could no longer support herself. If she hadn't been concerned about winning or losing, she would have fallen on the stage long ago. In addition, she had just activated that attack at the cost of her life, and now she was backlashed. Her internal organs seemed to be torn apart, and her injuries were serious. She could hardly even stand. The price this time was too high. Even after recovery, it would be difficult for her to improve her cultivation. She might even become a cripple from now on, completely destroying the possibility of cultivation. But Xuanhuan did not feel depressed or regretful at all. On the contrary, she showed a relieved smile on her face, because she had won. She did not embarrass her master or Dakin. She won, and that was enough. Xuanhuan looked at Qinmu with a gentle and sweet smile on her face. The crowd noticed Xuanhuan's abnormality and frowned and asked, "What's wrong with her? She should be overdrawn and can't hold on," someone guessed. Too extreme, alas, in order to win, she burned her soul and life. Even if she won the battle by chance, what's the use? She will have to pay the price in the end. Many people couldn't help shaking their heads and sighing. In their opinion, Xuanhuan was completely useless. After all, her soul was burned too severely. Even if she recovered, she would only be immortal. Her strength would continue to decline. There was basically no hope of practicing again in this life. This was equivalent to completely burying her future. Unless there was an immortal in the world, it would be impossible to change against the will of heaven. When Xuanhuan heard what the people around her were talking about, a hint of sadness flashed across her beautiful eyes. She was also aware of her own condition. Although she barely managed to keep her life, her future was completely ruined. However, she had no regrets or pessimism in her heart. All of this was her own will. The only regret was that she could no longer fight with her master. This was her lifelong regret. "Have a good rest, leave the rest to me." At this time, a gentle voice sounded and fell into Xuanhuan's ears. Xuanhuan's beautiful eyes suddenly lifted up. "At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid." Author, Len Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 505. This voice was too familiar to her. A look of joy suddenly appeared on Xuanhuan's cheeks. Her beautiful eyes looked in a certain direction, and she saw a handsome young man walking towards her, smiling at her, and his dark eyes were full of concern. "Master," Xuanhuan blinked her beautiful eyes, and was so excited that she almost burst into tears. At this moment, Xuanhuan felt that all the injuries were worth it. Looking at the master walking towards her, Xuanhuan's heartbeat accelerated, her cheeks flushed, and her heart was beating as if it was about to jump out of her chest. She felt like she was in a dream, so unreal, but the master's figure was getting closer and closer, and the familiar masculine breath came to her face, refreshing her heart, making her intoxicated and unable to get away. She even seemed to have forgotten the injuries on her body. She only stared at the handsome master in front of her, her mind was empty, and she was completely immersed in it. At this moment, all the surrounding scenes seemed to have disappeared, leaving only that figure, that face that countless girls admired. The people around stared at Xuanhuan in amazement. At this moment, Xuanhuan seemed to be shining with fairy light, extraordinary and beautiful. But just now, she looked like she was seriously injured and about to die. How come she suddenly seemed to have changed into a different person, peerless and unparalleled in the world? Could it be because she met the Lord of the Great Qin? Many people looked at Xuanhuan with strange eyes, and their eyes towards Qinmu changed subtly, with a hint of envy. It was a blessing to be able to get such a beauty. What was even more shocking was that Xuanhuan called the other party the master. This made people even more envious. However, despite the envy, someone asserted with certainty, "The Lord of the Great Qin is indeed very lucky, but it's a pity that this woman is destined to perish. She has burned the soul in her body and it is impossible for her to recover. Yes, it's too extreme. This is equivalent to ruining her future path of cultivation. Her potential is buried another person's side, obviously also regretful. Unless the great Luo immortal comes, she will definitely die and there is no hope. What a pity. With such a solid heart and talent, if there is no accident, her future achievements will definitely not be limited to this." Various discussions continued to be heard, and many people believed that Xiu could not leave alive. For her, this battle has been declared over. Not only the end of the battle, but also the end of her life and path of cultivation. Listening to the noisy sounds coming from all around, Xiu felt bitter in her heart. She had thought about this scene before. But she still chose to do so, because she knew that she could not drag her master down and bring shame to the great Qin. A sad smile appeared on Xiu's face, but she still couldn't hide her beautiful eyes that were blooming with brilliance. Even if she died on the ring today, she had no regrets, she won. That was enough. At this moment, the figure in black robe was walking towards the competition ring. He was tall and slender, with a handsome face, sharp edges and corners, and exuded an extraordinary temperament. The temperament of a natural superior was daunting. He seemed to be walking towards the ring, but every step he took would cross hundreds of feet in the void, and he arrived at the bottom of the competition ring in a few breaths. Everyone's eyes froze. This guy, so fast. Xiu's beautiful eyes stared at the black-robed young man in front of her, and she couldn't bear to look away, as if she could never see enough. She suddenly didn't want to die like this, because if she died, she would never see her master again. She wanted to survive. Master, I did it. Xiu raised her head and smiled brightly at Qin Mu. Her smile was as gorgeous as a blooming flower. She thought she would not cry, but at this moment she could not help crying. She had endured the setbacks, hardships, crises, and even the near-death experience in the battle just now. She did not allow herself to fall down. It was not until this moment, when she saw the master appear, that she removed all her defenses and revealed her most vulnerable side. Qin Mu came to Xiu, staring at her face, looking at the bright red blood overflowing from the corners of her mouth, the tears in the corners of her eyes, and her pale face, and suddenly smiled slightly. Yet Qin Mu nodded gently, then he stretched out his white palm and touched Xiu's smooth and tender little face, and asked softly, "Are you tired?" Xiu's heart was beating, and she felt the warmth from her palm, and her pretty face became more rosy. "Not tired, I am not tired at all to fight for my master." Xiu shook her head, her eyes firm. Although she said it lightly, in fact, she had already tried her best, and her spiritual power was exhausted. She could only stand with difficulty. Now her soul was burning, and her physical condition was extremely bad. Hearing Xiu's words, Qin Mu showed a touch of admiration on his face. Although Xiu was covered in blood, her dress was torn, and she looked a little embarrassed. But she did not have any decadent air, but had a different style, which made her even more charming. At this moment, she was as pure and beautiful as an elf. Even if she was covered in blood, it did not affect her beauty at all. This made the people around her look thrilling. This woman was so beautiful, especially her pale and weak face, but with a stubborn and obstinate color, which added a bit of touching feeling, making people pity her. "Well, you did a good job." A warm voice floated down from the top of her head, causing Xiu's body to shake violently. She raised her head slightly, her beautiful eyes looked at the master infatuatedly. The scene in front of her gradually blurred, and it seemed that she had a hallucination, and a picture appeared in her mind. That was the first time she met the master. The master at that time was high above, and she came to see him as an envoy of the Kanyu dynasty. At that time, the master sat on the dragon throne and overlooked the world. His eyes were extremely sharp, like a sword, full of arrogance. It was the first time she saw such a handsome man. The master at that time did not like her, and so did she. She had a deep hostility towards the master. Until later, she was trapped in the Yeting palace, and was whipped and abused day and night by the maids sent by the master. She was discouraged and wanted to die. However, the master actually came to the Yeting palace in person and saved her who was dying. That was the first time she tasted true emotion, and it was also the luckiest time of her life. From then on, She secretly decided that she would follow her master for the rest of her life and never betray him. Later, she went to the Kanyu dynasty and successfully became the empress, becoming the only emperor of the Kanyu kingdom. She finally had the qualifications to stand beside her master, accompany him to conquer the world and conquer the 9 states. When she heard that Dakin was attacked by the Tiankai domain, she decided to rush to the territory of Dakin to help Dakin. Even if she died, she was willing to give everything for her master. Master, Xiaqingshu stared at Qin Mu with her beautiful eyes and called softly, her voice soft to the bone. Her eyes were shining with bright stars, as if they contained infinite charm, and people would fall in love with them at a glance. Qin Mu looked at Xiaqingshu's beautiful eyes, blinked his eyes, and then smiled and said, "What's wrong?" "Nothing, I just want to call the master." Xiaqingshu exhaled a breath of turbid air and tried to squeeze out a smile. Qin Mu looked at the smile on Xiaqingshu's face, and his face was also filled with a warm smile. He gently stroked the short hair on Xiaqingshu's forehead and said gently, "Thank you for your hard work." Xiaqingshu gently leaned on her master's shoulder, like a lazy cat, enjoying the quiet and peaceful time at this moment. Her fingers gently touched her master's handsome cheek. Xiaqingshu felt that even if she died now, she would have no regrets. The two stood in each other's arms, and the scene seemed extremely warm, as if the world was integrated into the wonderful atmosphere. The cultivators around were stunned, staring at the scene in amazement, with strange faces. Is this Lord of the Great Qin here to participate in the celebration competition, or to show his love here? Even the referee below was tangled, wanting to interrupt but not daring to interrupt. After all, this Lord of the Great Qin was a quasi-emperor, and he couldn't afford to offend him. They were okay, at most they were just envious and jealous. The most envious and jealous were Zhang Luoshan and other women. They were so excited that they wished they could switch places with Xiaqingshu. Especially Zhang Luoshan. She regretted it so much that she killed the opponent with one sword just now. She should have fought to the death with the opponent, until both were injured, and then defeated the opponent with her life hanging by a thread. Then maybe the master would come to care about her. At this time, Xiaqingshu suddenly spit out a mouthful of blood, and her whole body twitched violently. Her face was extremely pale, and she leaned on Qin Mu's arms in exhaustion. "Master, I may not be able to die soon." Xiaqingshu spoke with difficulty, with a strong sense of weakness in her tone, and her eyes were fixed on Qin Mu. She didn't know whether the master could always remember her, but she hoped that before she left, she could let the master see her most beautiful appearance. "Who dares to let you die without my consent?" Qin Mu said with a smile. Xiaqingshu's mind trembled wildly, and she stared at Qin Mu's eyes blankly. At this moment, she suddenly felt 1,000 warm currents flowing through her heart. The master really didn't abandon her. "Okay, I'll heal you first. If you delay for a while, you will really be hopeless." Qin Mu patted Xiaqingshu's shoulder and said with a smile. Xiaqingshu nodded and didn't say anything more questioning. She always believed what the master said. Since the master asked her to heal first, there must be a way to save her. However, in the eyes of others, they didn't think so. Xiaqingshu's injuries were too serious, otherwise how could she be so embarrassed? This woman is probably on her deathbed and can't hold on for long. Many people thought in their hearts that although Qin Mu was very powerful, it was limited to this. With the strength of a quasi-emperor, he couldn't save any situation at all. "I think Xiaqingshu is definitely dead. I'll wait and see." "Haha, that's right. If the woman of the Lord of Qin dies outside of Qin, I wonder what the reaction will be. I guess the Lord of Qin will be very upset." Everyone started talking about it, with different expressions. Some were expectant, some were sarcastic, and more were gloating. Although they didn't know medical skills, they could see that the injury was too serious and could not be saved at all. She was on the verge of death. Even if the physical injury could be cured, the damage to the soul was not so easy to cure. Once the soul was damaged, even if it could be saved, the path of cultivation would be completely ruined. Therefore, such an injury is basically unsolvable. Even if she survived by chance, she would only be a waste. There is no need to waste energy to save her. Qin Mu naturally noticed the mocking eyes from all around, but he still ignored them. He stretched out a palm and pressed it on Xiaqiangxiu's back. Suddenly, a surge of holy power poured into Xiaqiangxiu's body, flowing through every tendon in her body in an instant, repairing her injuries. Puff, Xiaqiangxiu opened her mouth and spit out a mouthful of black filth, and her face improved a little. But this is far from enough. Xiaqiangxiu's injuries are too severe. Unless she can find the immortality medicine, she can recover. Her face is still pale, and she looks very tired and haggard. Her body is shaking slightly, as if she is about to fall at any time. Everyone shook their heads. I said it's not possible. In this situation, either an immortal will come to take action or find the immortality medicine, otherwise there is no third way. Someone said indifferently. Don't meddle in other people's business. Look, the Lord of the Great Qin hasn't spoken yet, why should we interrupt? Another person responded with a sneer. Haha, Lord of the Great Qin, if you are really a man, don't let this woman continue to suffer at this time, someone spoke to Qin Mu, with a strong sense of sarcasm in his words. Qin Mu raised his eyebrows and glanced at the man lightly. His eyes were deep, like an abyss, making the man feel as if his soul was frozen and his whole body was cold. Seeing Qin Mu looking at him, the man immediately lowered his head and dared not say anything more. He was terrified and even had the idea of running away. It was too terrible. Qin Mu retracted his gaze. Xiaqiangxiu looked down at her scars, a trace of shame appeared on her pretty face, and said, I'm sorry, I have caused trouble to the master. Qin Mu smiled and shook his head, gently holding her cold hand. A soft aura flowed into Xiaqiangxiu's body, turning into a wisp of vitality, nourishing her severely damaged internal organs. Suddenly, Xiaqiangxiu felt extremely comfortable all over. The originally painful meridians were instantly unblocked, and the pain in her body disappeared completely. But the damage to the soul still exists. This is a Taoist injury, which cannot be repaired by ordinary means. Just when Xiaqiangxiu was a little desperate, Qin Mu suddenly took out a piece of ordinary tree roots and handed it to Xiaqiangxiu. Master, what is this? Xiaqiangxiu asked curiously with her beautiful eyes blinking. Just when everyone was also confused. Boom boom, a terrifying thunder suddenly came from the void, shaking the void, and endless pressure enveloped the vast area. In an instant, the whole place was silent, and you could hear a pin drop. What happened? Many people were shocked and looked up at the sky, only to see the rolling dark clouds surging and roaring wildly. Is this the immortal medicine? Suddenly, someone screamed and stared at the sky in amazement. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 506. In an instant, everyone was shocked and speechless, and their breathing stopped for a moment. They stared at the rolling dark clouds and roaring lightning in shock, their eyes wide open, and they couldn't believe what they just heard. How come there is elixir here? The so-called elixir is a legendary divine item with heaven-defying effects. It is said that it can restore dying people to their peak condition, restore injured people to their original state, and allow an ordinary mortal to live tens of thousands of years out of thin air. It can be said that it contains infinite power and can even allow the emperor to live a second life. It is a priceless treasure. Even the powerful emperors flock to such a treasure. You can imagine how precious it is. Even if it is placed in the entire continent, the status of the elixir is transcendent. It is not inferior to elixirs, immortal stones, and immortal weapons, and is even more powerful. Because of this, When they learned that the elixir appeared, the entire Halloween mountain was boiling with excitement. Countless pairs of eyes cast their gazes toward the sky, full of fiery greed. The elixir of death has really appeared, many people murmured to themselves, excited, with blazing eyes, wanting to rush into the dark clouds and snatch it away immediately. I saw a branch hanging in the sky above the sky, releasing a hazy green light, exuding vitality, as if it had infinite magic power, making the souls of the crowd unable to help but resonate with it. Elixir, my God, I finally see the elixir of death, someone shouted excitedly. I have seen records in ancient books that the elixir was born in the chaos of yin and yang. The heaven and earth were at the beginning. Yin and yang were not yet clear. The heaven and earth were conceived and had the characteristics of immortality. Another person spoke slowly. After his words fell, the whole place fell into a brief silence. Many people's hearts beat hard and their pupils shrank violently. It is indeed the elixir of death. No wonder such terrifying visions appear in this world. Even the people in the four holy lands were suppressed, and many elders stared at the elixir with sharp eyes. Their respective sects may have many precious materials such as elixirs, immortal stones, and magic weapons, but they have never seen the elixir. This is a treasure that only exists in classical literature. It has been lost in the dust of the years and has not been seen in the world for an unknown period of time. Today, they finally saw the elixir with their own eyes. In the void, three figures stood there, staring at the elixir above the sky. The leader, a middle-aged man with a burly body and rough face, exuded a hint of iron-blooded killing temperament. His muscles were bulging, as if he contained infinite explosive power. On the left side of the middle-aged man is an old man in purple robe, with white beard and hair, a childlike face, a red face, and a strong spirit. Although his temples are gray, his figure is tall and straight, and his breath is vague, and it seems to fluctuate regularly, giving people with a sense of inscrutability. The one on the far right is a young man in white clothes. He has sword-shaped eyebrows and starry eyes. He is handsome, with an extraordinary figure. His movements reveal extraordinary magnanimity. He is the lord of the Wangxiang Palace who just appeared. Moreover, there was a layer of faint golden light surrounding the three people, which enveloped them, making it impossible for outsiders to peek inside, let alone see their appearance clearly. They are the leaders of the three holy places. Another one didn't come. At this time, the three people's eyes were all staring at the glowing elixir. They did not get close, but just stood and observed from a distance. "What did you find?" the old man in white robe asked, looking at the master of the Vientiane Palace and the middle-aged man. "It's a bit like it," the master of the Wangxiang Shrine said in a voice. The middle-aged man said nothing, but his eyes were very sharp, staring at the elixir closely. This was the first time he encountered a divine object of this level. Not only them, but everyone in this world raised their heads and stared at the sky, wanting to see the elixir with their own eyes. They only felt that their hearts were filled with excitement, as if they were dreaming. The appearance of the elixir was so sudden and unusual that it caught people off guard. As for Qin Mu, who took out this elixir, he attracted even more attention. At this time, he became the focus, and everyone's eyes were focused on him. Qin Mu's expression remained as usual, turning a blind eye to everyone's gazes. He did not deliberately hide anything, but displayed the elixir openly in front of everyone. This behavior is incomprehensible to countless people. The lord of the Qin dynasty is quite magnanimous. He openly revealed the elixir. He is quite courageous. If it were us, we would have to conceal it. What exactly does he want to do? Isn't he afraid that we will snatch the elixir? Does he think he can resist the alliance of so many forces? I can't tell. Is he just using this elixir to save Jiqingxiu? Many people were whispering and talking, their hearts trembling slightly as they wondered what Qin Mu wanted to do. Jiqingxiu herself was also stunned. She stared blankly at the dazzling green branches above the sky, her mind buzzing endlessly, a feeling of dizziness came over her, and she almost fainted. The master actually took out the elixir. She looked at Qin with her beautiful eyes, and saw him standing with his hands behind his back, a faint smile on his lips, looking extraordinarily free and casual, as if he was not worried about the consequences of the elixir being exposed. "Master, you." Xiaqiangxiu bit her red lips lightly, her heart already deeply moved. She had never dared to expect Qin to be so kind to her. But today, the master did not hesitate to take out the elixir in order to heal her injuries. How could she not be moved? At this moment, she suddenly had an urge to throw herself into her master's arms and act like a spoiled brat. "It's just an immortality medicine. Even if it is exposed, who can do anything to me? My great Qin territory is vast and boundless. How can a group of rats shake it?" Qin looked around the crowd and said calmly. Hearing this, the crowd's eyes changed again. This immortality medicine is indeed something from the great Qin dynasty. What kind of power is this? It can take out an immortality medicine just like that? Buzz. Just then, the immortality medicine suspended in the sky shook slightly, and then a majestic and vast life essence diffused from it, turning into strands of thin lines and spreading towards Xuanhuan mountain. Finally, all entered Xiaqiangxiu's body. Xiaqiangxiu's beautiful eyes closed, her breath gradually stabilized, and her originally pale face became rosy and shiny, as if she was a little younger in an instant. Her delicate body was bathed in the life essence blooming from the immortal leaves, just like bathing in the spring breeze. At this time, the cultivators in Xuanhuan mountain all felt a strong and pure life essence flowing in and merging into their bodies. They immediately felt extremely comfortable, as if their souls had been cleansed. Not only them, but people from other forces also felt this change, with shock flashing in their eyes. What an amazing immortality medicine, their hearts trembled again. This was definitely a rare and extremely divine object in the world, otherwise how could such a terrifying scene be created? The light of the immortality medicine became stronger and stronger, and a stream of terrifying vitality permeated, and the entire Xuanhuan mountain was shrouded in this vitality. Not only that, the grass and trees in this world grew wildly, green and full of vitality, as if a new life was born, which made many cultivators look very happy, and they all sat cross-legged on the spot to comprehend. It's a pity that this vitality only lasted for a moment and disappeared without a trace. What a pity, many people sighed secretly. It would be great if such a strong vitality could last for a while, which would be of great help to the improvement of cultivation. Thinking of this, their eyes became even more fiery, and they looked at the immortal medicine with more greed and heat, wishing they could rush up and snatch it now. "This thing belongs to us. Kill!" Someone shouted loudly, and countless terrifying auras bloomed in an instant, and figures rushed out towards the dark clouds, trying to fight for the immortal medicine. Qin smiled slightly when he saw the scene in front of him, and then turned his eyes to Xiaqiangxiu and said, "Just heal your wounds and don't worry about other things." Yes, Xiaqiangxiu nodded gently. Although she also wanted to help, she was in no condition at all. Boom, boom, boom. Violent explosions resounded in the void, and many figures rushed straight to the immortal medicine, releasing attacks, breaking the peaceful scene. Powerful attacks whistled out and rushed straight to the immortal medicine. The destructive waves swept all around, shocking the hearts of the crowd. "Protect His Majesty!" A cold shout was heard, and dozens of powerful saints stepped out, all of whom were filled with terrifying pressure. They waved their hands at the same time, and golden rays of light emerged, turning into majestic war god sculptures, standing between heaven and earth. One after another, the golden war gods, hundreds of feet tall, stepped out, and the void seemed to shake violently with every step they took. Wherever their feet landed, everything was destroyed. The crowd couldn't help but take a breath of cold air when they saw this spectacular scene, and their hearts were beating. These people were actually saints. Were they brought by Qin Mu? Retreat quickly, someone shouted, and countless figures shot out crazily, trying to leave this place. However, they were still a step late. The golden war god punched out with both fists, and the domineering and fierce power crushed everything. The endless golden light raged between heaven and earth. Those who tried to escape were suppressed on the ground, their bodies stiff and unable to move. In the blink of an eye, all the cultivators who rushed towards the immortal medicine were blasted away by the golden war god, spitting blood. Dozens of dull collision sounds were heard, and countless figures exploded in the void, blood splattered, and there were no bones left. Screams came one after another, shrill and piercing. Qin Mu glanced at the surrounding situation indifferently, his expression did not change at all, as if he had been accustomed to it and had no mercy. At this moment, the world was silent, with only the sound of wind and sand blowing past, and the hearts of the crowd were in turmoil, and they could not calm down for a long time. Are all these people dead? Many people trembled wildly, their faces were full of fear, and they looked at the golden armored guards standing in the void with fear in their eyes. It's terrible, those people are all dead, someone whispered, his heart was still pounding, as if he had not recovered from the previous shock. These golden war gods are so terrifying that they can kill countless practitioners with just a wave of their hands and feet, making them feel small and humble, and vulnerable. At this time, an indifferent voice came out. Qin Mu looked at the people below, and a cruel arc appeared at the corner of his mouth. Who of you wants to try it? After this voice fell, the faces of those people froze there, and they dared not move, for fear of becoming the next person to be killed. The 4 holy places are all here, but you are killing so much, it's too rampant. A cold voice came from a distance, and an old man in gray stepped out. He was thin, his face was vicissitudes, and there was a sharp edge between his eyebrows. Obviously, he was not an ordinary person. It's Chendeajun of Taixuan Palace. Everyone recognized the identity of the old man in gray, and a strange color flashed in their eyes. Taixuan Palace, one of the top forces in Daoxuan domain, has a profound sect foundation, and is only slightly inferior to the 4 holy places. It is said that Taixuan Palace has produced 2 emperors, and is one of the oldest forces in Daoxuan domain. The disciples of Taixuan Palace are highly regarded wherever they go, so this grey-clothed old man named Chendeajun can stand in front of Qin Mu so proudly and accuse Qin Mu of being too arrogant. Oh, Qin Mu looked at him and sneered. I took out medicinal materials to treat my people in Dakan, but these people came up and wanted to rob them without knowing right or wrong. Can't I resist? You are also a super sect, but you actually joined forces to do such a despicable thing. It's really shameful. I feel ashamed for you. Qin Mu said sarcastically. Chendeajun was speechless. He had to look for help at the 3 figures in the void. What he didn't expect was that the 3 figures chose to remain silent at the same time, as if they had heard nothing. Chendeajun was stunned. What was going on? He was vaguely aware of something, but he couldn't believe it. They were all leaders of their respective holy places, with extremely high status. How could they tolerate such arrogant behavior of the Lord of the Great Qin? He hadn't figured it out yet, but he saw Qin Mu suddenly attack, slapping out with one palm. In an instant, a monstrous pressure enveloped the void, and the atmosphere of the entire space suddenly became solemn, like a towering mountain suppressing everyone's heart, making people breathless. Chendeajun's face changed drastically, a gleam of light flashed in his turbid eyes, his arm trembled, and a spear emerged, blasting towards the void. The spear penetrated the void, carrying a huge force, but when it came into contact with Qin Mu's attack, it instantly collapsed and shattered, and the spear was crushed by the aftermath. Qin Mu continued to move forward and pressed his palm again. In an instant, a palm print that blocked the sun and the sky appeared in the sky. It contained extremely terrifying rules of prohibition, which seemed to be able to block everything. Chen Daojun felt as if he was trapped in a quagmire and could not move. His face was extremely livid. He tried his best to resist the oppressive palm print, but he could not resist it at all. He was bent over and his knees were about to kneel on the ground. Ah! Chen Daojun let out a painful scream. His body was held by the huge palm print, and only a crisp sound like a snap was heard. Chen Daojun's face showed despair and painful struggle. His body twisted violently, as if he was enduring great pain. His flesh and bones were squeezed into pieces by the palm print bit by bit, and even his bone marrow was worn away, and then completely dissipated between heaven and earth and turned into dust. This scene made everyone's heart twitch fiercely, their pupils shrank, and their hearts trembled wildly. It was too cruel. This guy was simply not a human. They no longer had any covetous thoughts in their hearts. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Leng Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 507. Such ruthless methods will not give you a way to survive. If the person just now was not Chen Daojun, but replaced by a weaker person, would the end be worse? They even suspected that if Qin Mu wanted to, he could massacre them without any effort. After all, Qin Mu's cultivation level was there. At the thought of this, many people's faces were as pale as paper, and they were stagnant as if they had lost their souls. Every ray of air here was filled with chill, making them feel breathless and did not dare to move easily. Qin Mu glanced at the people below and saw many people lowering their heads and avoiding his sight, like children who had made mistakes and did not dare to look at him. Go away, Qin Mu spat out a faint voice. Although the voice was calm, it seemed to have some kind of magic power, making people feel trembling. After hearing this, many people hurriedly left here as if they had been granted amnesty. They were all gone in the blink of an eye. Even Chen Daojun's body was dragged away. How cruel! Looking at the fleeing figures, Ji Tianming murmured, feeling a little amazed in his heart. He was worthy of being the emperor of the Qin dynasty. His methods were decisive and ruthless, without any mercy. He would kill people and kill people with just one move. Unforgettable forever. There was a sparkle in his eyes, and this kind of personality suited his taste. There was no need to mince words. Once the target was determined, he would leave no room for it and destroy it at all costs. However, De Qin's confidence is a bit too strong. At the beginning, all its trump cards have been exposed. What will happen next? Ji Tianming shook his head and turned to Qin Mu, with a glimmer of appreciation in his eyes. He is really curious now, what exactly does the Lord of Qin want to do, and what will he do next? Sir, you seem to be very interested in this Lord of Qin, the maid on the side couldn't help but ask. She has followed Ji Tianming for a long time and knows her master's temperament. She has never seen such a look in his eyes. Ji Tianming glanced at her and said, although this lord of the Qin dynasty is young, his methods are ruthless and domineering, his mind is brilliant, and his talent is very evil. It is rare in the ages. I am quite interested in him. Is that so? The maid nodded, showing a hint of thinking. Ji Tianming's lips curved up and he said, perhaps, he will become a new legend. But at this time, Ye Bufan, who was sitting in the Qingtian temple, didn't think so. He frowned and looked at the figure in front of him, feeling a deep sense of frustration in his heart. This lord of Great Qin was about the same age as him, but his strength was unfathomable and many times more powerful than him. How could this make him feel so embarrassed? The quasi-emperor, is really the quasi-emperor. Ye Bufan's heart stirred up a huge wave, with shock and confusion in his eyes. Where did this lord of Great Qin come from? There are only a handful of powerful quasi-emperors in the world today, and each one of them is famous all over the world. He has personally seen the demeanor of the powerful quasi-emperors from Qingtian Temple, who are overwhelmingly powerful, invincible in the world, and suppress an area. But this was the first time he heard that a young man had set foot in the quasi-emperor realm, which was simply shocking. This is troublesome. Master has not come here. If I deal with this lord of Great Qin, my chances of winning are slim, Ye Bufan thought bitterly. This time, the master of Qingtian Temple, his master, did not come here to host the centenary celebration. He came here alone. If something happened, how should he handle it? Originally nothing would happen, but now that De Qin has become a variable, it's hard to say what the future will be like. Thinking like this, Ye Bufan did not dare to hesitate any more and quickly called out to his elders. Elder Luo, please contact my master now and ask him to arrive as soon as possible, Ye Bufan said immediately. Elder Luo nodded. He also realized that the situation was serious and had to request support. In addition, let the disciples find people from other sects to discuss countermeasures. Ye Bufan continued to give instructions, vaguely feeling in his heart that a big disaster was coming. There was a turmoil and an undercurrent under the stage. Xiekyanxiu on the stage didn't care about this at all. She continued to absorb the spiritual power of the elixir. Under the nourishment of the elixir's spiritual power, her originally pale and weak face regained a bit of rosy color, her temperament became more ethereal, and her whole person seemed to have been completely transformed. At this moment, a dazzling golden light suddenly bloomed all over her body, bathed in rays of light, covering the entire arena, making it extremely gorgeous. The rumble of thunder resounded, and a vast ocean of golden thunder suddenly condensed on the sky, releasing a terrifying power of thunder and lightning that seemed to be able to destroy everything. Hiss. Seeing the thunder phenomenon condensed in the void, the crowd couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air, and their faces instantly froze. A pair of pupils shrank violently, and a look of disbelief appeared in their eyes. Is this thunder tribulation? The crowd's hearts were beating wildly, and their heads felt dizzy. The monks survived the tribulation and had a narrow escape from death. There was only a small chance of surviving, while the others were buried under the thunder tribulation and died. But at this moment, someone actually caused a thunder disaster in the ring. This scene is really shocking. What a powerful force! Ji Tianming's eyes suddenly condensed, staring at the sea of thunder in the void, with a hint of surprise in his eyes. This woman actually caused a thunderstorm, which was beyond his expectation. Qin Mu stood on a high platform in the distance, overlooking the scene on the ring, his face still calm, as if he had guessed it a long time ago. Boom, boom, boom. The thunder roared like thunder dragons raging across the world, filled with the power to destroy everything. The endless vitality of heaven and earth gathered crazily and merged into the thunder, making them even more terrifying, as if they had turned into heavenly punishment. Even Ji Tianming couldn't help but feel frightened by a lightning disaster of this scale. Even he could hardly withstand the impact of this thunder. The power of thunder and lightning fell down, drowning everything. In an instant, the arena was covered by an extremely powerful aura of thunder and lightning, and bright and dazzling lightning burst out, illuminating the space brightly and creating a great visual impact. Many contestants stepped back one after another, not daring to get even half a step closer, otherwise they would suffer unreasonable disaster. Ah! A wailing sound of painful screams came, and 2 Dao-killing monks were seen suffering from the baptism of thunder and lightning because they had retreated too late. Crack! A huge lightning pillar struck down, blasting the bodies of the 2 men away. Their whole bodies were scorched black, their breath was weak, and they were obviously disabled. Hiss! Everyone's hearts twitched violently, and they looked at the dense thunder in the void with fear on their faces. Their foreheads were covered with fine sweat, and there was an inexplicable chill in their hearts, and they shuddered. Just a bolt of thunder slashed 2 Dao-slaying monks. If it fell on him, wouldn't he be dead? Boom boom boom. As the terrifying thunder pillars fell one after another, the crowd's hearts trembled violently, and they began to panic in their hearts. They kept running away in all directions, hating their parents for giving them fewer legs. They secretly cursed in their hearts, "Are they playing tricks on people?" They summoned thunder and calamity when they were on stage, without considering other people's feelings at all. After they escaped to a safe location, they all stopped and looked cautiously towards the ring with expressions of worry and fear on their faces. On the arena, thunderclouds were seen rolling, roaring, and tumbling, constantly condensing into streaks of lightning, containing terrifying destructive power, tearing apart the void, trying to destroy everything. Countless thunder and lightning fell from the sky, overwhelming the sky, pouring down like raindrops, causing a violent sound of breaking through the air, and the entire arena was shaking. Xuanhuan sat cross-legged on the ring, letting the boundless thunder and lightning fall down, but she did not escape at all, and even showed a faint smile at the corner of her mouth. She fell into some kind of wonderful state, her pretty face was extremely calm, and there was no trace of it. Not affected by lightning. "Oh my God, this woman is a monster," the crowd suddenly couldn't help but curse. They have seen many evil geniuses, but they have never seen such a perverted one. He actually took the initiative to let thunder attack. This was not asking for death. You must know that thunder calamity is the purest destructive power in the world, and every thunder has unmatched terrifying energy. Even if it is just a wisp, it is definitely not something that ordinary monks can contend with. A slight contamination will end in ashes, let alone a direct confrontation. It's so outrageous, it's so outrageous. The crowd was so shocked that their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. In the eyes of everyone, this woman must not know how powerful she is, so she did such a ridiculous thing. You know, once you can't bear it, you will definitely be destroyed, and you won't even have the chance to be reincarnated. Ji Tianming's eyes sharpened as he stared closely at the situation on the ring. How did this guy do it? What on earth did she want to do? Ji Tianming frowned deeply, with a trace of surprise and confusion on his face. He also didn't understand Xuanhuan's actions. It stands to reason that in such a terrible thunder disaster, no matter what protective measures you take, you should save your life first. But Xuanhuan was the complete opposite. She didn't resist at all and didn't seem to care. Isn't this a little too conceited? No, she has something to rely on. Ji Tianming's eyes narrowed, and he suddenly looked at Qin Mu standing aside, and his heart suddenly became enlightened. He suddenly realized something, and glanced at Xuanhuan again. He saw that her whole body was bathed in the rays of light, surrounded by wisps of fairy sounds. She seemed to be covered with a layer of gorgeous and sacred clothes. She was extremely beautiful, just like a real fairy-like. Could this be Xuanhuan? Ji Tianming's gaze suddenly froze there, his eyes widened as if he had seen a ghost. Immortal charm, as the name suggests, is a unique temperament that only immortals can possess. It is difficult for ordinary people to understand this ethereal artistic conception in their lifetime. Immortal rhyme can resonate with heaven and earth and communicate with the great will of the immortal realm, thus producing immortal rhyme. As long as you can understand this mysterious realm, you can obtain infinite blessings. At this moment, Ji Tianming's eyes became a little fiery. His supreme Taoist heart was faintly rippled. He once tried to comprehend the immortal charm, but failed. He always thought that the world was not qualified to comprehend this realm, but now he saw Xuanhuan's performance. Ji Tianming had to change his mind. Nowadays, Xuanhuan is like a piece of jade. Although it has not yet bloomed with dazzling brilliance, it has already revealed a hint of majesty. Even the cultivator Ji Tianming, who has forgotten his feelings, thinks so. It can be seen that others are even more so, especially some young geniuses. There are some subtle changes in the eyes looking at Xuanhuan, with a bit of enthusiasm and expectation. and Xiaqiangxiu's dense eyelashes trembled slightly, as if she had entered a state of ecstasy, completely ignoring everything around her, with only one thought: to survive the catastrophe. She wanted to survive the catastrophe. After surviving this catastrophe, she would truly enter the realm of saints. At this moment, with her master escorting her, it was the best time to survive the catastrophe. As soon as this thought came up, Xiaqiangxiu could no longer suppress it from deep in her heart, and madness surged into her heart, dispelling all distracting thoughts, and her mind was completely immersed in the catastrophe. I saw lightning strike Xiaqiangxiu's body, making her skin transparent and crystal clear, beautiful. Under such a terrifying attack, Xiaqiangxiu still sat cross-legged with her eyes closed, without any damage, and even without frowning, looking extremely calm. Such a heaven-defying scene made her look like the darling of the Creator. Under the thunder tribulation, Xiaqiangxiu exuded a fierce and domineering aura. She was suspended in the air, like a peerless immortal. Qin Mu stood with his hands behind his back, his expression was extremely calm. He looked at Xiaqiangxiu, and his eyes flashed with a hint of brilliance. Xiaqiangxiu at this moment was completely different from before. She was full of strong aura, her black hair was flying, her fair skin was as delicate as a baby's, and her face was exquisite and beautiful to the extreme, making everything in the world pale in comparison. Even the top fairies could not reach her eternal beauty. I didn't expect you to have such a talent and be able to comprehend the immortal charm, Qin Mu whispered, his eyes flashing with excitement. He originally just wanted to help Xiaqiangxiu heal her wounds, but he didn't expect that she could take this opportunity to complete a breakthrough, and what he didn't expect was that she could even comprehend the immortal charm by using the branches of this enlightenment tree. It seems that he has always ignored her talent. The other party can cultivate to the current level, not just relying on luck and resources. In that case, he didn't mind helping her. After all, this fairy charm was a rare thing for Qin Mu. Qin Mu looked up at the sky and smiled slightly. The enlightenment tree swayed, releasing brilliant fairy light that enveloped Xiaqiangxiu. Fairy patterns spread out, forming a huge formation pattern that covered the entire towering enlightenment tree. In an instant, green leaves fluttered and flew towards the enlightenment tree, entangled by the fairy light, and slowly fell into Xiaqiangxiu's body. As these green leaves continued to merge, the power of the formation became more and more powerful. Indistinctly, the sound of fairy bells rang out, which was unparalleled in the ear. Boom! The heavenly tribulation became more and more intense, the rolling thunder was deafening, and the endless power swept in all directions, making people's souls tremble. But Xiaqiangxiu showed no fear. She closed her eyes tightly, and her delicate body was covered with a hazy golden light, like a goddess from the sky descending to the earth. On the sea of thunder, there were beautiful seven-colored lotus flowers floating, gorgeous and charming. Xiaqiangxiu's beautiful eyes slowly opened, and a charming arc appeared at the corner of her mouth. She murmured, finally broke through. As soon as the voice fell, she heard her delicate body tremble slightly, and a majestic soul power spread out, interweaving into a mysterious pattern above the ring, which seemed to contain the avenue of heaven and earth, and exuded a sense of ethereal meaning. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Leng Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 508. Instantly, many warriors felt a sudden shock in their minds, and felt dizzy. They showed a look of shock on their faces. What was going on? Above the ring, a vast picture gradually formed, as if it contained a world, in which various divine brilliances flowed, each of which was filled with terrifying power and contained amazing avenue fluctuations. In this picture, it seemed that a new world was bred, and it seemed that there was nothing, illusory and vague. Many people stared at the void in amazement, and saw that outside the ring, there were fairy shadows emerging, all of them were graceful and beautiful women. They stood in the clouds, their clothes fluttering, and they were as transcendent as the 9-day exiled immortals. This, the rumored fairy rhyme, one person exclaimed, his eyes full of shock. Fairy rhyme, this is the fairy rhyme, the others were ecstatic, staring at the ring, full of fiery spirits. Such a strange phenomenon was simply incredible. Because this is a vision that only immortals can have. Immortal sounds resounded through the sky, and wisps of immortal mist fell down, like a dream, so gorgeous that countless people were obsessed with this scene. The next moment, in the void, there was a distant and vast sound of bells. Dong, dong, dong. The sound of the bells became louder and louder, resounding through the sky. Every time it rang, everyone felt their souls suddenly tremble. For a moment, many people present turned pale and trembled. A terrible breath spread out, and everyone felt a sense of oppression coming. Who is it? Countless people looked up at the high platform. They vaguely guessed that the power might be transmitted from Qin Mu. Although the breath was strong, it did not have a strong killing intention. It seemed that it was just simply guiding the rules of heaven and earth. On the ring, Qin Mu's figure soared into the air, with immortal charm lingering around him. He stretched out his right arm and pointed his fingertips upward. In an instant, the immortal rhythms floating in the air shot in one direction, turning into countless rays of light and sinking into Xuanhuan's body. At this moment, Xuanhuan's body trembled violently. She felt something extra in her body. With a thought, that thing suddenly surged with surging vitality, wandering wildly along the 8 extraordinary meridians, making her pores open and moaning comfortably. She felt that there seemed to be another change in her body. Her flesh, blood, tendons, and bones became hard and could withstand the most terrible attacks. It hurts. Xuanhuan's pretty face twisted together, and fine beads of sweat oozed from her forehead. It was obviously extremely painful, but this pain brought her indescribable pleasure, as if her whole body was bathed in the sun. Crack. A crisp sound came out, and a muffled sound came from Xuanhuan's body. Then she felt a trace of extremely bright power entering her body. She immediately sat cross-legged and controlled the power to spread to her internal organs. That power was like a flame, warm and gentle, as if it was endless. Any obstacles along the way would be quickly burned and disappeared, unstoppable. Soon, all the meridians and acupoints in Xuanhuan's body were full of vitality, as if she had been reborn and full of vitality. At the same time, Xuanhuan felt that the spiritual power in her body was countless times more refined and powerful than before, and her strength increased by more than one level. Suddenly, a picture flashed through Xuanhuan's mind. She seemed to have traveled through the boundless space. Everything in front of her changed and became completely different. At this time, she was in a palace. The surrounding environment was quiet and elegant, and the fragrance of flowers was permeated, refreshing, as if it was a paradise. Xuanhuan sighed in her heart, where is this? She slowly raised her head and looked up. Above her head, a bright crescent moon rose slowly, releasing a holy light. Have I arrived in the fairyland? Xuanhuan said in a daze, with a touch of bewilderment in her beautiful eyes. She looked down at her body, which was completely different from before. Her skin was as smooth as jade, with a faint pink glow, making her even more charming. She reached out to touch her face, and her delicate skin made her feel a little unreal, like a dream. At this moment, a dazzling purple gold light flashed between her eyebrows, and the whole person seemed to be covered with a layer of purple gold luster, revealing a majestic temperament. Her eyes were as deep as the abyss, as if containing the light of the eternal stars, which was breathtaking. I am. Xuanhuan was stunned again, her eyes were fixed there. Was this a dream or reality? She looked down at her hands, her slender palms were crystal clear, as if emitting a faint light, and a ray of light enveloped her body, making her feel particularly relaxed and comfortable, and the whole person was much lighter. At this moment, she exuded endless holy light, as if there was a sacred breath spreading out, as if it was merging with this area, making this space full of holy light. Could it be that all this is true? Xiu murmured, still feeling a little dazed. Then her body flew into the air, left the palace, and flew away, wanting to confirm her guess. Not long after, Xiu landed in an area with lush vegetation. Her beautiful eyes swept around, and suddenly, her beautiful eyes stagnated in a corner, and her eyes suddenly became extremely strange. At this moment, there was a stone tablet there. The whole body of the stone tablet was silver white, and there were many complicated and mysterious patterns on it, revealing an ancient atmosphere. Xiu walked over and took a closer look. The pattern on the stone tablet did not seem to be an ordinary pattern, but rather recorded some information. Could this be some kind of martial arts? Xiu guessed in her heart. However, when she focused her attention on those patterns, her head suddenly banged loudly, as if she was struck by thunder. Suddenly, a terrifying chill swept over and froze her body. She only felt her body stiff and unable to move. No matter how hard she tried, she could not break free from the restraint, as if she was frozen. What's going on? Xiu was shocked. How could such a strange thing happen here? Buzz, buzz, buzz. Suddenly, a buzzing sound sounded, like the sound of wind whistling past, and then Xiu's eyes suddenly widened, staring at a direction in front of her, only to see endless sword light blooming there, extremely sharp, tearing the space. In front of her, a sword after a sword was suspended there, and each sword released an extremely terrifying sword intent, as if it had the power to destroy everything, causing the void to vibrate slightly. Seeing this scene, Xiu's beautiful eyes were dazed. Was all this an illusion? Xiu was a little confused, but the next moment she confirmed her judgment. It was definitely not an illusion. All this really happened, or, it really happened. At this time, the sky seemed to become gloomy, dark clouds rolled in, and the sky seemed to have a hole. Sword beams fell from the hole, extremely dazzling. The sword intent was extremely powerful, enough to shatter the sky and destroy everything. Puff. The endless sword energy fell down and landed on all the buildings below. Those buildings could not withstand the pressure and broke directly. Xiu stood aside and looked at the scene in front of her. Although these sword intents were not aimed at her, she also felt a chill in her heart and could not remain calm. The sword rain fell madly, boundless, as if it would never stop. The world was destroyed in an instant, everything was destroyed and turned into ruins, only the bright moon was there alone, shining on the ruins. What kind of sword intent is this? Xiu stared at the front in amazement. All this brought her too much shock. The scene just now was extremely terrifying. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, she wouldn't have believed it. Just the sword intent released could destroy everything. It was beyond her cognition. However, this was not over yet. In the sword rain, there seemed to be a few angry roars, as if it was the roar of a monster, roaring at the world. Hearing this sound, Xiu couldn't help but tremble, and her eyes couldn't help but look in the direction of the sound. There, several figures appeared, they were bathed in blood, and they moved forward step by step with difficulty, leaving a deep mark under their feet. Every step they took seemed to use up all their strength. However, even though they were in such a mess, they still stepped forward firmly without any hesitation, with an extremely tenacious and persistent look on their faces. Their clothes had long been torn, bloody, and their flesh and blood were turned over. They had obviously experienced a tragic battle, but their fighting spirit was not weakened at all. Who are these people? Xiu's beautiful eyes were full of surprise. Those people obviously survived the tragic battle, but why did they go here again? Their figures soon appeared in Xiu's sight. They glanced around and saw the scene below. A touch of sadness and gloom flashed in their eyes, but more of it was helplessness. You go first, this place has been exposed, and what awaits you is only killing and death. One of them said to the people beside him, I hope you can escape and leave the last spark of fire for the human race. Damn it, those people gritted their teeth and said, we will never abandon our brothers and live alone. Even if we die today, we will drag the enemy down with us. Xiaqiangxiu's heart beat fiercely when she heard this. Leave the last spark of fire for the human race? What does this mean? No need to say more. One of them shook his head and refused. You go quickly, it will be too late if you are late. After that person's voice fell, the others fell silent, sighed in their hearts, they knew that they could not change anything. Senior brother, save me. At this time, a cry for help sounded. Xiaqiangxiu turned her eyes and then saw a woman running towards them. She was also stained with bright red blood, her lips were pale and bloodless, her delicate body was panting violently, and her beautiful face was full of panic and helplessness, which made people feel distressed. When the men saw this scene, their expressions changed immediately, and they rushed over quickly. But before they could get there, several black shadows suddenly appeared in the distance. Then, fierce attacks burst out one after another, like a meteor, piercing through the void, and instantly shot into the woman's body, completely submerging her body. Ah! A miserable cry came out, and the woman fell to the ground, covering her chest with both hands. Her pretty face was extremely pale, and blood slowly seeped out through her fingers. Junior sister. The other few people were torn apart when they saw the scene in front of them, their fists clenched and clicked, and their eyes were filled with murderous intent. Xiaqiangxiu's expression froze there. She didn't expect such a scene to happen. Who were those black shadows just now? At this moment, there were huge waves in her heart, and she could not calm down for a long time. She looked at the woman lying on the ground, and felt a sense of sadness in her heart. At this time, the woman was still struggling and trying to get up. However, she was seriously injured, her body was unstable, and she fell to the ground again. Stop moving, Xiaqiangxiu shouted in a low voice. Although the other party couldn't hear her, she still couldn't help but say it. The woman raised her head and was about to open her mouth to speak, when suddenly a bright sword light passed by and penetrated her body. Her pupils suddenly widened, as if unwilling and resentful. Xiaqiangxiu looked at the woman lying in a pool of blood, biting her lips tightly, her heart trembling slightly. I saw the woman's body gradually stiffening, and a wisp of life dissipated between heaven and earth. Her delicate face was filled with unwillingness and regret. Ah! Several piercing and pitiful wails echoed through the sky, like howls from ghosts and gods, which was horrifying. Xiaqiangxiu's body trembled violently when she heard the voice, and her beautiful eyes looked at those figures. Their eyes were split open, their expressions were ferocious, and their whole bodies exuded an extremely tyrannical evil spirit. Their eyes were red and filled with grief. Damn it, I'll fight you. Suddenly, a man looked up to the sky and roared, and blasted out with a palm. The dark palm prints were seen pressing down from the sky, covering the vast area. The space shook violently, as if it could not withstand the pressure of the terrifying giant palm. Just hearing a loud bang, that area of space collapsed and was annihilated, turning into boundless chaos, as if the end of the world was coming. Several other people also followed suit and launched their own attacks, causing the entire space to tremble violently as destructive storms swept out. The black shadow in the distance also released extremely violent demonic energy, and its body rose up, turning into an invisible giant in an instant. Attacks hit them one after another, but they did not cause any substantial damage to them. Instead, they seemed to arouse the demonic nature hidden in their bodies. Kill! With a loud shout, black shadows rushed out like wild beasts, rushing into the sky. They wielded giant axes and swords, slashing wildly, and every blow carried unparalleled power. Destroy all obstacles. Puff, puff. The sound of a sharp weapon scratching the skin came, and along with the blood scattered to the sky and the earth, shocking scars appeared on the bodies of those people, and the blood flowed from their bodies. And every drop of blood falling into the space can even cause terrifying ripples, which is enough to prove how terrifying the power contained in blood is. Once contaminated, you will be in great danger. Xuanhuan looked at the bloody figures fighting, and for some reason, she suddenly had the urge to go up and fight alongside them. After an unknown amount of time, the battle was over. The world had completely fallen and turned into a Shura purgatory. Several corpses lay in the air, blood filled the air, and a breeze blew by, dissipating into a blood mist all over the sky. Xuanhuan's beautiful eyes were still looking there, her eyes were blank, and she vaguely guessed something in her heart. I'm afraid those people have died here. She stood quietly aside, looking at the sad and desperate scene in front of her. She felt her heart twitching, her mood fluctuating, and she could not calm down for a long time. Wake up! At this moment, a warm voice came into the eardrums. Xuanhuan's figure trembled, and her eyes suddenly opened. When she opened her eyes, there was a daze in the depths of her eyes, which looked extremely dull. At this time, she felt dizzy and a little unbelievable. What happened just now was so real, and it really happened before her eyes. Master, I seem to have seen an immortal. Xuanhuan looked at the master in front of her and said subconsciously. Before she finished speaking, Qin Mu put a finger on her small cherry red lips, nodded gently, and said with a slightly solemn expression. Yeah, I saw it too. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mi and Bulletin Leng. Chapter 509. Xuanhuan blinked her beautiful eyes and immediately closed her mouth in understanding, not daring to continue asking. She had a vague guess in her heart that the scene she just saw might involve some secrets, or even an ancient secret, so the master asked her to shut up. After all, the relationship is too big. If word spreads, it will definitely cause an uproar. Let's go. Since you have made a breakthrough, let's step down. Qin Mu looked at Xuanhuan and said. Yes. Xuanhuan nodded obediently, and then the two of them flickered and quickly fell downwards. Soon, they landed on the edge of the ring. Congratulations on advancing. At this moment, the referee responsible for presiding over the game said with a smile. Hearing this, Xuanhuan's heartbeat couldn't help but speed up, and she finally advanced. Xuanhuan turned to look at the man beside her, her cheeks were slightly red, her beautiful eyes were shining, and she said, Master, what do you think of my performance this time? Very good. Qin Mu nodded slightly, with a hint of relief in his eyes. He was naturally very satisfied with Xuanhuan's achievements today. What about the reward? Xuanhuan looked at Qin Mu expectantly. This was what she was waiting for. Of course the reward will not be small. Qin Mu smiled mysteriously, and then said a few words to her via voice transmission. Xuanhuan was stunned for a moment, and then a shy smile broke out on her pretty face, which was beautiful and moving. At this moment, her beautiful eyes suddenly became unparalleledly alluring, as if they were about to drip with water, and her charm was revealed. Every move was filled with fatal temptations, making people unable to help but immerse themselves in it, and they would never be able to wake up. Did you comprehend some magical power just now? Show me your hand. Qin Mu asked with interest. Master, I understand. Xuanhuan said sweetly, and then she stepped forward, and a brilliant purple light shot into the void. In an instant, a purple light curtain appeared out of thin air, sealing the void. Seeing this scene, everyone around them looked at Xuanhuan in confusion, wondering what she was going to do. I only saw Xuanhuan walking in lotus steps, walking up to the monks who were killed, stroking her jade hands, and a group of purple gold flames slowly emerged. There was a strange fluctuation in the flames, causing many people around people's hearts trembled suddenly. What kind of flame was this? It was so powerful. Then everyone saw Xuanhuan's slender hands gently raised, and the purple gold flames fell on the three bodies, and the three bodies burned in an instant. It's more like a wisp of pure soul power than a flame. The purple gold flames became more and more intense, and eventually, the three corpses were turned into ashes and scattered in the void. At the same time, the remaining corpses all lit up with a faint light, and wisps of souls floated out, gathered in the void, and gradually merged together, condensing into an illusory figure. Ji Qingxiu waved her hand continuously, and the illusory figure gradually became clear, and finally took shape, exactly like those of the deceased. This is. Everyone looked at Xie Qingxiu dumbfounded, as if they didn't believe their eyes. These monks have been dead for a long time, and logically speaking, their souls have long since disappeared. But he didn't expect that Xie Qingxiu only used a purple gold flame to condense his soul again. What a weird ability! Everyone's hearts were shaking wildly, all eyes were fixed on Xie Qingxiu with solemn expressions. They could see that the purple gold flame was not an ordinary flame, it had inexplicable power, otherwise it would not be possible to achieve this. This made them extremely fearful. No one wanted to have their souls pulled out and endure such pain and torture after they died. It would be worse than death. Master, am I powerful? Xie Qingxiu smiled brightly and looked at Qin Mudeo with stern eyes. At this moment, she was as holy and refined as the nine heavens' mysterious lady, and her whole body exuded a flawless light that was suffocating. Of course it's amazing, Qin Mu praised with a smile, his tone was endearing and his eyes were extremely gentle. At this moment, Ji Qingxiu's beautiful eyes showed surprise. She had never felt her master look at her like this before. This is the first time. Xie Qingxiu smiled, looked at Qin Mu with her beautiful eyes, and said coquettishly, "Thank you, master." After she finished speaking, she moved lightly and walked slowly to Qin Mu, then took his arm and buried Zhen's head in his arms. At this moment, Xie Qingxiu felt that her whole heart was about to melt, and she felt an extremely strong love. At this moment, Qin Mu did not refuse Xie Qingxiu's intimate behavior, but just reminded him, "There are many people here, so be careful." Hearing Qin Mu's reminder, Xie Qingxiu stuck out her tongue and let go of him. Her pretty face was still as red as a cloud, and her heartbeat obviously hadn't calmed down yet. Qin Mu took her and quickly walked to the seat of the Qin dynasty. Area. Along the way, everyone's eyes fell on the two of them, with extremely complicated expressions in their eyes. The quasi-emperor, the imperial soldiers, the elixir and the immortal charm are all so dreamy that it is simply unbelievable. However, when the facts are before our eyes, we can't help but believe it. The name De Qin also left a deep impression on the hearts of the world. Of course, there are also people who are jealous of Xie Qingxiu, especially some women, who wish to replace Xie Qingxiu and become the woman next to Qin Mu. Although Xie Qingxiu is indeed very beautiful, Qin Mu is a quasi-emperor, controls the imperial soldiers, and can produce elixirs. For such a perfect man, what woman can resist the attraction? Therefore, some jealous women felt uncomfortable and wanted to find trouble with Ji Qingxiu, but considering that this might anger Qin Mu, they could only suppress their emotions temporarily and dared not act rashly. At this moment, Ji Qingxiu was in a very good mood, with a bright smile on her face, and she was in an excited state all the way. "What are you happy about?" Qin Mu asked. Because of the master. Ji Qingxiu looked up at Qin Mu and blinked. Qin Mu smiled. "Next, please invite the contestants to play." At this time, the referee spoke loudly again, which immediately aroused heated discussions among the crowd. They were eager to see the next round of battles and who would enter the finals. This is the most critical thing at the moment. And this time, it was finally Ye Bufen's turn to play. At this moment, many eyes looked in his direction, and many people held their breath, wanting to see Ye Bufen show his elegance. Ye Bufen looked at those top geniuses, and a cold arc appeared at the corner of his mouth. Today, he wanted to let these people know that he was the strongest of the younger generation. Ye Bufan stood up and walked towards the ring. At this moment, many people's pupils contracted and their eyes were fixed on Ye Bufan. At this moment, he gave people a very dangerous feeling. Many participating monks' hearts trembled, and they prayed in their hearts that they would never meet him. Soon, Ye Bufan came to the ring. He was wearing a star robe, with a superb temperament, like a king in the galaxy. He looked around the crowd, proud and unparalleled. In the crowd, a monk suddenly showed an unspeakable bitter expression on his face. This person was Li Yongxiao, the pride of the Li family. He had planned to take this opportunity to show off, but he met the person he least wanted to meet as soon as he entered the ring. His luck was really too bad. You should admit defeat, so as not to waste each other's time. Ye Bufan glanced at Li Yongxiao indifferently, and then turned around directly, as if he was too lazy to look at the other party. You don't want to be too arrogant, Li Yongxiao gritted his teeth. Get out of here. Ye Bufan frowned, and there was a hint of chill in his voice, and his tone instantly became cold. He originally disdained to bully a waste, but the other party was so ignorant of his courtesy, so he couldn't blame him. The faces of the crowd changed one after another. This Ye Bufan was so arrogant that he asked people to get out of here directly. This was not only arrogant, but also overbearing. Li Yongxiao's face was as pale as paper, and his body was shaking violently. I am the son of the Lord of Seven Star City, how dare you humiliate me, Li Yongxiao growled. Humiliate you? Ye Bufan's mouth slightly drew a sarcastic smile, and said, you are worthy. You. Li Yongxiao was extremely angry, his face was ashen, and his body was stiff in place. He was the son of the Lord of Seven Star City, but he was actually despised and insulted like this, which made him feel humiliated and even felt ashamed to be alive. If you roll down now, you may still have a chance to survive. Ye Bufan continued to speak, with a hint of coldness in his words. This made Li Yongxiao's body stiffen, and his face showed extreme fear. He couldn't help but look at the crowd behind him, hoping that they could stand up for him. However, the crowd seemed not to see it, and avoided Li Yongxiao's gaze. No one wanted to provoke this killing god. Who wanted to get into trouble? Seeing the reactions of the people, Li Yongxiao became even more frightened, and his heart sank to the bottom of the valley, as if he had seen his miserable end. Since you don't roll away, then I'll send you off. A sharp light flashed in Ye Bufan's eyes, and in an instant a violent and extremely powerful aura spread out, covering the vast void, causing countless people's hearts to shake violently. So strong, everyone felt their souls tremble, and their hearts trembled wildly, as if they were being stared at by some kind of prehistoric beast. Just a breath of air released made people feel suffocated. There was a loud rumbling sound, and the crowd saw Ye Bufan stepping on the ground, and his whole body burst into dazzling thunder light, just like a thunder god of war, with an ethereal temperament and inviolable majesty. The next moment, Ye Bufan took a step forward, and in an instant, he disappeared from the spot, and when he appeared again, he was already next to Li Yongxiao. Boom! Ye Bufan suddenly punched out, and the speed was so fast that it was almost impossible to catch it with the naked eye, and only a vague afterimage could be seen. The void seemed to collapse, and the destructive lightning was raging wildly, and the entire space was annihilated, which was extremely terrifying. What kind of skill is this? What a terrible thunder power! Everyone couldn't help but take a breath, only felt a chill, and their hearts were pounding wildly. Puff! The crisp sound of bone cracking sounded, accompanied by a shrill scream. Everyone saw a cloud of blood spraying out. Li Yongxiao's body flew out and fell heavily to the ground, his chest sunken, his ribs shattered, and his internal organs all shifted. He struggled to get up, but couldn't do it at all. Blood was flowing, his face was pale, his eyes were full of panic and despair, and he was obviously completely useless. Hiss! The crowd gasped and felt their scalps burst. Although everyone had expected the ending, They were still deeply shocked when they saw the scene with their own eyes, and secretly sighed that he was worthy of being a demon and a genius. Ye Bufan still had his back to Li Yongxiao, as if he had never moved at all. I lost, Li Yongxiao said slowly, his voice hoarse and weak. After saying these 3 words, his eyes went black and he fainted, his breath was weak, and it seemed that he was only hanging on with his last breath. Ye Bufan ignored him and left the martial arts arena. The crowd looked at him with a hint of awe, such fighting power was truly terrifying. And off stage. After Qin Mu reconciled with Jian Shui and returned to De Qin's seat, Xie Qingxiu's eyes flickered for a moment, and then her eyes returned to a clear and lively color, her heartbeat quickened, and she asked, "Master, what happened just now?" Qin Mu was silent for a moment, and then said, "With the help of that fairy charm, you entered the dreamland and saw some things in the past." Dreamland, Ji Qingxiu muttered to herself, brows moving slightly. "Yes, if I guess correctly, that woman is your reincarnation in the past life. You two belong to the same person. Now that the reincarnation is reappearing, you will naturally merge with each other." Qin Mu continued to explain. Xie Qingxiu was silent for a moment after hearing this, and murmured, "I have heard that the dreamland exists in illusion. For countless years, few people have been able to enter it, let alone understand it. However, today I actually saw the dreamland with my own eyes. And also saw the reincarnation of past lives, which is indeed wonderful. You have indeed seen your past life, and this is also your greatest opportunity." Qin Mu nodded in agreement seriously. He also didn't expect that Xie Qingxiu would see reincarnation in his past life. Qingxiu blinked, a bright smile bloomed on her pretty face, and said, "Since I was so good in my previous life, I wonder where my strength has reached in this life. Can I surpass it in my previous life?" Qin Mu shook his head and sighed, "Everyone in the past life is astonishing to everyone in the past and present. They are evil monsters who defy the heavens. Although your strength is good, you are still far behind those people." Hearing this, Xie Qingxiu felt a little disappointed and couldn't help but muttered, "I know I can't do it." "Master, you don't have to comfort me." Seeing the hint of frustration in Jian Shui's tone, Qin Mu smiled and said, "You don't have to be discouraged. You are still young and your potential can still be tapped. Given time, you will definitely be able to catch up with them, and it is not impossible to even surpass them." Really, Xie Qingxiu's eyes were filled with joy when she heard this. Her beautiful eyes were filled with brilliance as she looked at Qin Mu expectantly. Qin Mu smiled and nodded, "Can I still lie to you?" "But, what exactly did they go through back then?" Xie Qingxiu suddenly asked again. After hearing this, the smile on Qin Mu's face gradually faded and became more solemn. "That might be the legendary sorrow of the immortal realm." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 510. The Sorrow of the Immortal Realm. Xie Qingxiu was confused, obviously she had never heard of this term. Qin Mu shook his head and said, "That's just a rumor. Even I don't know exactly what happened, because the records of De Qin are not comprehensive. Many key information has been lost in the long river of time and no one can explore it." Hearing this, Xie Qingxiu nodded and did not continue to ask. After all, some secrets were so old that they were not recorded even in ancient books. However, Xie Qingxiu was very curious, what had she experienced in her previous life? Moreover, judging from Qin Mu's words, her past life seemed to be closely related to the fairy world, which aroused a strong interest in her heart. Today you have a glimpse of your past life, and you have completed one of the records. However, you must remember not to leak anything to the outside world, otherwise it will bring disaster to you. At this time, Qin Mu suddenly turned around and gave a serious warning. Xuanhuan felt awestruck, and quickly nodded in assurance, saying, "Master, don't worry, I won't talk nonsense." Yes, Qin Mu nodded with satisfaction, then raised his hand to caress her forehead and said, "Go and have a rest first." "Okay, master, I'm going then." Xuanhuan responded and stepped back respectfully. Looking at her graceful and charming back, Qin Mu's eyes changed slightly, and a dark and inexplicable look flashed deep in his eyes. It seems that there is really a problem in the fairy world. No wonder no one has been able to ascend to the fairy world for so many years. I just don't know who those black shadows are, and they can bring the fairy world to such a state. Qin Mu thought to himself, with a cold light flashing in his eyes, and said, "Just wait and see, sooner or later I will break through that barrier." At this time, the fighting continued. On one of the arenas, Ji Tianming, dressed in white, was standing proudly on top of the arena, looking extremely majestic. In addition, in several other arenas, there were some strong young men standing, each with outstanding temperament and profound cultivation. Ji Tianming looked at his opponent and said calmly, "I will suppress my strength to the same level as you. If you can defeat me, you will win." Snort. The man on the opposite side scolded angrily and said, "Stop talking nonsense and suffer death." Before he finished speaking, he was radiating bright golden light, stepping on the void and rushing towards Ji Tianming. Ji Tianming spread his arms out like a blooming lotus, with crystal clear aqua-blue lotus petals appearing around it. The next moment, lotus petals filled the sky floating down, and each lotus petal contained extremely domineering power. Bang bang bang. In an instant, the two collided several times, making deafening roars and violent winds raging in all directions. The speed of the two fighting was so fast that all the spectators were stunned. As expected of Supreme Master Ji Tianming, he actually suppressed his strength actively. No one else has this confidence. It is said that this man is extremely talented. Not only does he possess the rare 5-spirit saint body, but he is also extremely talented. He is known as the #1 disciple of the Taizhang sect and the holy son of today, someone commented. Not only that, Ji Tianming's supreme path of forgetting love has already reached its extreme state. He can cut off all 7 emotions and 6 desires with one thought, and his mind can be as still as water without any interference, someone said. Tai Shang Wang Qing, when someone heard this, they couldn't help but look stunned, their eyes widened, as if they had discovered a new world, and they couldn't help but said, "The supreme sect's Tai Shang Wang Qing Dao is said to be practiced to the extreme, comparable to the way of heaven. I don't know if it's true or not." These words made the expressions of everyone around them freeze. They had all heard of the reputation of Taizhang Wangqing Avenue, but they did not expect that it could have such a terrifying effect. Cultivating to the extreme is comparable to the way of heaven, which is simply appalling. You must know that the laws of heaven are above all things and are the eternal laws and order of the world. No one dares to disobey the laws of heaven. How could anyone be comparable to the way of heaven? This is just a legend. It's hard to tell whether it's true or false. A monk was silent for a moment and then spoke. However, there are indeed such rumors circulating in Taizhang Wangqing Avenue, but no one can prove whether they are true or false. Because since the beginning of the creation of Taizhang Wangqing Avenue, Taizhang cult has preached the terrifying power of this technique, but so far no one has reached this level. Everyone looked at Ji Tianming, and saw that his face was always indifferent, showing no emotion at all, as if he was inhumane and showed no emotion at all. Although Ji Tianming is strong, I feel that he has met his opponent. Another person spoke slowly. Oh, everyone looked at the speaker with sharp eyes, only to hear him continue. Ji Tianming's opponent comes from Brahmavijaya in the Paradise realm. It is said that this person once climbed the 93 steps and understood the 99th level of the true Buddha. Although his level is lower than Ji Tianming's, his strength is not weaker than Ji Tianming's. So that's it. Everyone was stunned, and then fell into shock. Fan Wuji climbed to the top of the 93-story ladder and understood the true Buddha's Dharma. Is it so powerful? It seems that this competition will be very fierce. Many people are full of expectations. That's right, Ji Tianming shouldn't be so trusting and suppress his realm to the same level as Brahmawuja. If he loses, he will definitely suffer backlash. Perhaps he thinks he can win this battle. This idea is very dangerous. What do you know? This is the demeanor of a strong man. Everyone is talking a lot. No matter how it ends, this battle is worth looking forward to. On the stage, the two had already fought for one round. Ji Tianming looked calm, standing with his hands behind his back, and the water blue lotus petals around him floated in the air, like a banished immortal. Fan Wuji stared at Ji Tianming with a gloomy look and said, I admit that you are very strong, but it is not easy to beat me. I advise you to put away your arrogance, otherwise you will pay a heavy price. His tone was very calm, but it was full of strong confidence, and he was obviously confident that he could defeat Ji Tianming. Your strength is indeed extraordinary, but I am afraid you are far from qualified to beat me. Ji Tianming's expression was still calm. Haha, in this case, then you should show all your strength and let me see how much you are. Fan Wuji laughed sarcastically. As soon as the voice fell, his right palm slapped out violently, and the golden palm print crossed the sky, crushing with the momentum of crushing withering and rotten. This is a powerful palm method, which is enough to easily kill the cultivators at the peak of the Zhandao realm, and its power is terrifying. Facing the fierce and overbearing attack of Fan Wuji, Ji Tianming did not move at all, with a cold arc at the corner of his mouth, and then he stretched out his right palm. His palm was shining with dazzling blue light, as clear as crystal, with a breath of ice, as if it could freeze the space. He waved his arms, and the sky full of water blue lotus petals shot towards Fan Wuji, covering the sky and covering the entire sky. The scene was spectacular. Bang, bang, bang. The violent collision sounded, and the golden palm print shattered crazily, turning into endless golden light and disappearing. Fan Wuji's eyes condensed slightly. Obviously he did not expect such a thing to happen. Ji Tianming's means were beyond his expectations. Is this all your strength? Ji Tianming said coldly. Humph, don't be happy too soon, it was just a warm-up. Fan Wuji snorted coldly, and his legs suddenly stepped forward. A surging and powerful soul power swept out from his eyebrows, covering the vast area. In the depths of his soul, a giant pagoda was suspended there, diffusing endless and brilliant Buddha light, and Sanskrit characters floated in the void, releasing extremely dazzling Buddhist power. One after another, the phantoms of Buddha sat cross-legged in it, solemn and dignified, exuding the aura of the Supreme Buddha. Buzz. Suddenly, the huge pagoda trembled, releasing dazzling Buddha light. Waves of Sanskrit characters flowed and flashed in the void, and each Buddhist text contained unparalleled spiritual power. At this moment, the pagoda suddenly surged several times, standing like a mountain above the sky, and the Buddha light fell down, covering the vast space. In an instant, all the Sanskrit characters on the pagoda surged and turned into giant swords. The sword energy was overwhelming, tearing the space and slashing towards Ji Tianming. Buddhist secrets. Ji Tianming's expression changed, and he looked up at the pagoda. He felt that the pagoda was very unusual, giving him a very strange feeling. He could vaguely glimpse a glimpse of the future, as if he saw the future, which made his heart tremble. A strange light flashed in Ji Tianming's eyes. He really had some skills. No wonder he could climb the 93 steps. But, that's all. Break. A low and cold shout came out of Ji Tianming's mouth, and in an instant, a wisp of terrible thunder and fire beams burst out from his body, turning into a series of gorgeous patterns. The thunder and fire burned the void, blocking all the Buddha lights that were slashing, and continued to explode and annihilate, and the destructive aftermath ravaged the space. Fanwuji's eyes suddenly froze. He didn't expect that his proud secret skills could be resisted so easily. Fanwuji frowned, a sharp look flashed across his face, and he shouted coldly, "It seems that you really have some skills. I hope your strength is as strong as your words." Boom, Fanwuji stepped forward heavily, and his body suddenly became tall and straight. A more majestic spiritual power was released, and the pagoda suddenly glowed, with Buddha's light shining thousands of feet, and countless Sanskrit characters surrounded it, as if it had turned into a Buddhist world, with Buddha's light shining everywhere and Sanskrit sounds curling. The world became silent, leaving only those Buddha's light characters flowing rapidly, like a meteor streaking through the sky, purifying everything wherever it touched, and the Buddha's light illuminated the space. "This is the world of Vasa." Ji Tianming's pupils shrank fiercely, and his face finally changed. Boom boom. The void shook, and the infinite power of Buddhist rule surged from all directions and gathered above Ji Tianming's head. A golden vortex condensed and released 1,000 feet of golden light, which made Ji Tianming bathed in infinite Buddha light, and the whole person became holy, as if a Buddha had descended to the world. Yes, it is the world of Pasa. Today, I will give you a chance to convert to my Buddha. Fanwuji spoke indifferently, his voice was loud, like a true Buddha who had passed down an imperial decree, and his words and deeds revealed an inexplicable charm. Once he said it, he was the master of the world and wanted to save the world. As soon as the voice fell, Fanwuji's pupils gradually turned golden, like a glass gem, flashing with a gorgeous luster, which made people feel palpitations. Behind him, there appeared a number of illusory Buddha shadows, with solemn appearances, releasing an invisible oppressive breath, which made people breathless. Fanwuji waved his hands quickly, and a series of obscure and mysterious hand gestures struck into the huge pagoda. In an instant, the entire pagoda shook more violently, and a terrifying aura spread. Countless Sanskrit characters gathered from all directions, and strands of Sanskrit characters gathered together to form a series of rough and boundless Buddhist chains. Each chain was filled with the terrible power of Buddhist rules, blocking the void, imprisoning time and space, and blocking all of Ji Tianming's retreat routes. At this time, Ji Tianming stared at Fanwuji opposite him, with a ray of light in his eyes, and said, "You are very good, worthy of my serious fight." Ji Tianming stood in the center of the void, allowing the Buddhist chains to block the space. His body was straight, his face was still calm, as if he didn't care at all. This scene made countless people secretly marvel. Fanwuji used the world of Pasha to seal the void with the help of the supreme Buddhist technique, isolating all breath. Ordinary saints and strong men were imprisoned and would definitely not be able to escape. But Ji Tianming was calm and composed, not panicking at all, which showed that he was extraordinary. This Ji Tianming was really a strange man. Facing such a dangerous situation, he remained calm. "In that case, then, it's time to send you to heaven." A faint voice came from Fanwuji's mouth. He put his palms together and pointed his finger. The Buddhist chain trembled violently and turned into a long rainbow, carrying the might of crushing withering away. Wherever the Buddhist chain passed, the space was slightly distorted, as if it was about to collapse and shatter. Once hit, Ji Tianming would be wiped out. However, just when the Buddhist chain was about to touch Ji Tianming's mouth suddenly drew a strange arc, and smiled lightly. "Although the Buddha is powerful, it depends on who can use it." After that, he stretched out his right hand suddenly, opened his 5 fingers, and then slowly formed a seal, accompanied by a series of complicated and obscure hand gestures. A vast space suddenly appeared above his head, with endless stars hanging in the void, shining brightly, and a silver moon hanging in the sky, shedding billions of rays of light, making the void full of vitality, like a new world. At this moment, Ji Tianming's temperament suddenly changed, and his whole body exuded a sense of transcendence, as if he was a banished immortal from the fairyland, with extraordinary power. Fanwuji's eyes condensed slightly, and he felt a hint of uneasiness. The next moment, Ji Tianming pushed forward with his left hand, and a dazzling golden light shot up into the sky, stinging people's eyes. That was a sword. A long sword that seemed to be forged by the fusion of the rules of heaven. The whole body was brilliant and dazzling, exuding endless sharpness, as if it could tear apart all obstacles. The sword fell, and the Buddha was destroyed. Puff! The sword light slashed, and the Buddhist chain broke inch by inch. The Buddhist tower shook wildly, cracks spread out, and finally turned into nothingness and disappeared into space. The Buddha's light in the sky disappeared, leaving only a sword mark, which was deeply imprinted on the space and did not disappear for a long time. Fanwuji's face was embarrassed, and there were turbulent waves in his heart. His Pasha world was actually broken. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 511. He had just tried his best to activate the Pasha world, and with the power of the pagoda, he could even match the attack power of the peak saints. However, he still couldn't stop the opponent's attack. How could this be possible? What virtue and ability did this boy have to possess such a heaven-defying combat power? At this time, Ji Tianming was filled with a sense of transcendence, like a person from the outside world, as if he was incompatible with this world, which gave people a great shock. He looked up at Fanwuji and said, "You lost." Fanwuji's heart twitched when he heard this, and his face was extremely gloomy. "Do you want to continue?" Ji Tianming asked again. His tone was light and calm, as if he was narrating an insignificant matter. Fanwuji's face turned pale when he heard this, and his fists creaked. As the most prestigious young generation in the Paradise domain, how could he be eliminated in the first round? Wouldn't it be a joke for others to see when he returned, and they would definitely ridicule him? He would never allow such a thing to happen. "Do you think that you can win by breaking through my Pasha world? You underestimate me too much," Fanwuji said coldly, with a hint of ferocity in his eyes. After the words fell, Fanwuji stepped forward, and the golden light flowing on his body became stronger. He really turned into an ancient Buddha. His momentum became stronger, and the Buddha's light was lingering all over his body, as if he was wearing a layer of Buddha's clothes, which made him look sacred and extraordinary. Amitabha Fanwuji chanted a Buddhist name, and the surrounding spiritual mountain shadows trembled wildly. The Buddha's light enveloped the heavens, making the sky brighter. Endless Buddhist sounds rang out, as if penetrating through the space, descending on the eardrums of the crowd, cleansing people's souls. The crowd showed awe. The strong Buddhist sound was worthy of being the top evildoer in the paradise, and its strength far exceeded that of the same realm. Boom boom. The Buddha's light seemed to be alive, and endless golden swastikas danced in the space. A surge of extremely powerful pressure burst out, covering the boundless space, suppressing countless people, causing their breathing to become rapid and their faces to turn pale. The supreme forget love facing such an attack, Ji Tianming suddenly murmured, and he closed his eyes, as if he had entered a mysterious state. Then an ancient shadow appeared behind his head. This shadow was a young man with a handsome face, revealing a sense of transcendence. This person was wearing a green robe, elegant, standing there, as if he had left the world, and as if he had merged into the world. Every move was full of charm, unpredictable. I saw this person raise his palm and gently push forward. In an instant, a wisp of breeze was born between heaven and earth. These winds were extremely gentle, blowing through the void, making the void more peaceful, and a faint Zen meaning permeated from his body. The countless swastika mantras gradually disappeared when they encountered this Zen spirit, blending into the void like snowflakes, dissolving completely, as if they had never appeared. Ji Tianming opened his eyes flashing with exquisite sharpness, looking at Fanwuji, and said, "You can't win." Fan Wuji's face suddenly darkened when he heard this. He didn't say anything, but ancient temples appeared around him, releasing dazzling Buddhist light, and Buddhist sounds were curling, and the whole space was filled with Buddhist sounds. Obstinate Ji Tianming glanced around indifferently, without any ripples in his tone. Ji Tianming's eyes were as sharp as a knife, his feet stepped on the galaxy, and the whole person floated out like a breeze, releasing a terrifying sword power. He waved his palm, and the golden giant sword drew a gorgeous trajectory and slashed forward. In an instant, there was a click sound, and a Buddhist temple exploded and turned into ruins. Fan Wuji's face changed drastically. This sword, even the Buddhist tower couldn't stop it. Boom boom. There was another thunderous sound, and the boundless Buddha light was completely extinguished, turning into an illusory light spot. A golden giant sword slashed down fiercely, with an incredible speed. The sword body flashed with terrible thunder light, as if a destructive force was pouring into it. When the sword fell, the whole void was shaken violently, and endless destructive light swept in all directions. Fan Wuji's face was pale, and he retreated violently, with crazy anger and unwillingness flashing in his eyes. He was actually forced to such a point, which was a shame. However, even if he wanted to escape, he couldn't escape at all. The golden giant sword contained the power of destruction and locked his breath. Even if he fled to the ends of the earth, he couldn't avoid this sword. I am a Buddhist, how can I lose to a Taoist cultivator? I don't accept it, Fan Wuji shouted to the sky, followed by a boom. Suddenly, a brilliant golden Buddha light bloomed on Fan Wuji's body, and a set of golden cassocks appeared on his body. A Buddhist statue appeared above his head, solemn and majestic, thousands of feet high, as if it could accommodate everything, and the Buddha's light shone everywhere. At this moment, Fan Wuji was bathed in the Buddha's light, like a real emperor, unstained by dust, not dirty or clean, sacred and extraordinary. He stared at the golden giant sword that was coming to kill him, his pupils shrank, a trace of determination flashed across his eyes, his hands slowly opened, a breath of compassion emanated from his body, and an obscure Buddhist sound came out of his mouth, "My Buddha is merciful." As the sound fell, a majestic and boundless Buddha's power swept out from Fan Wuji's body, and the whole void suddenly became extremely quiet. Everyone held their breath, their hearts thumping, staring at the scene in front of them in amazement. Quasi-Emperor soldiers. Someone said with difficulty, his voice trembling. After these words fell, the whole place was silent. Fan Wuji, holding a quasi-emperor weapon. Quasi-emperor weapons can only be called quasi-emperor weapons if they are made by the quasi-emperor himself, and Fan Wuji actually holds a quasi-emperor weapon. How terrible is the power of the quasi-emperor weapon? Even if the spiritual power is not activated, the power of the quasi-emperor weapon itself is enough to sweep away anyone below the quasi-emperor. Ji Tianming felt the pressure erupting from the golden treasure temple, and frowned slightly. This time it seems to be a bit troublesome. Although Fan Wuji can only borrow part of the power of the quasi-emperor weapon at this time, it is a real imperial weapon after all. At this time, Fan Wuji put his hands together, closed his eyes, as if he was silently reciting scriptures, his head slightly raised, his whole body was bathed in the Buddha's light. He looked at Ji Tianming, and said lightly, "I originally planned to save this trump card for the last use, but now it seems that I can't keep it." After the voice fell, he stretched out his finger and flicked it into the void. A subtle sound was heard, and the void suddenly solidified. Countless Buddha lights intertwined and turned into a golden Buddha in an instant, standing between heaven and earth, majestic and vast. The golden Buddha slapped out with its palm, carrying a terrifying power, sealing the void. The sword light could not move as soon as it approached it, as if it had encountered an unparalleled obstacle. Ji Tianming's eyes were stern, and he waved his palm. Endless star power surrounded his body and turned into star maps. Each pattern was flowing with extremely terrifying power. Once released, It was enough to shatter the world. Go, a cold shout sounded, and Ji Tianming's arm stabbed forward suddenly. Those star maps rushed out immediately, turning into starlight all over the sky, and came out with a devastating force. The star map collided with the golden palm, and the collision between the two burst out with dazzling brilliance, and waves of shocking aftermath swept away, cracking the sky with a crack. Seeing this, Fanwuja formed seals with his hands and uttered a Buddhist sound again. The spiritual energy between heaven and earth rolled and roared wildly, turning into a huge and boundless vortex. The vortex contained an extremely terrifying devouring power, as if it wanted to engulf everything in heaven and earth, and all attacks would be annihilated by the devouring power. Even the power of the forbidden arena was no exception. It was twisted and deformed wildly under the devouring power, and even many cracks appeared, as if it could not withstand this power. Everyone's eyes were shocked. The quasi-emperor weapon was too terrible. It only took one move to break the forbidden technique. How could they fight? Ji Tianming looked up at the devouring technique with a solemn expression. This kind of scale and level of power was difficult to resist even if his body was strong. The quasi-emperor weapon was like a cheating device, which could be used recklessly. No matter how strong the opponent was, as long as they were at the same level, they could be crushed by the quasi-emperor weapon, unless the opponent also had a quasi-emperor weapon. This battle is already a foregone conclusion. Even if Ji Tianming releases all his suppressed cultivation, it will be difficult for him to win this battle. Even what Ji Tianming needs to do now is to consider how to survive this battle. Fanwuja is obviously already blood-curdling. He is urging the quasi-emperor soldiers regardless of anything. He only wants to win and will obviously not give up easily. Ji Tianming frowned slightly. He was not afraid of death, but this kind of battle was too aggrieved. He was completely in a passive situation and had no ability to resist. This was a situation he was extremely reluctant to see. There was no other way. If it really didn't work, he could only admit defeat. He couldn't die here. However, when Ji Tianming was about to give up, he heard a vague and ethereal voice in his mind. The Tao is ruthless, but people are emotional. Your Tao is wrong. When this voice fell, Ji Tianming's face froze there, with a look of astonishment. Who is saying this to him? His Tao is wrong? Impossible. How could his supreme forgetting love way be wrong? This is the foundation of the supreme religion. How could it be wrong? If it's wrong, it's wrong. Why deceive yourself? Another ethereal voice sounded. This time Ji Tianming said without hesitation, only those who are supreme and ruthless can transcend the world and be free and at ease. How can my way be wrong? Ha ha, you are wrong. The ethereal voice laughed and said, the supreme is ruthless, but you think so. This road is wrong. Nonsense, how about my way? Is it your turn to interrupt? Ji Tianming scolded. Whether I am talking nonsense, you know it in your heart, the voice continued to sound. But it is not easy to explore so much today. You are in danger now. I give you a chance. If you don't seize it, you will stop here for the rest of your life. Humph, don't bewitch me. I have my own way, which cannot be changed by a few words from you, Ji Tianming said disdainfully, still firmly believing that he is right in his heart. The voice was silent for a moment, and suddenly said, since you are stubborn, let me help you. Ji Tianming was stunned. Help him? Help with what? Afterwards, an inexplicable force descended into his body, directly penetrated into his blood, and roamed in it, causing his whole body to tremble violently, as if he was in great pain. His pupils gradually turned red, filled with anger, hatred, and violent flames, as if he was trapped in some kind of demon barrier. The hideous lines faintly appeared on that beautiful face, revealing a bit of evil and charming temperament. The whole person looked extremely weird, like an evil demon king. This sudden change made everyone's eyes flicker. What happened? You, What did you do to me? Ji Tianming couldn't help but question in his heart, his body was a little spasmodic. Help you break through the shackles, the ethereal voice said. You. Ji Tianming gritted his teeth, feeling the blood in his body boiling, as if it was burning, making his face paler and paler, and the veins on his forehead bulged, as if he was enduring extremely severe pain. This guy clearly wanted to hurt him on purpose. This is simply taking advantage of someone's misfortune. You are so cruel. Ji Tianming cursed in his heart, feeling that there was an endless demonic sound roaring in his ears. His face showed a painful look, his eyes were confused and scattered. Although he knew that the voice had bad intentions, the power was too strong, he couldn't control his emotions at all, and could only let the voice affect him. Moreover, he also wanted to see what the voice was going to do. Ji Tianming's mind seemed to be gradually lost, and his eyes completely lost their luster, as if he had become another person. At this moment, he no longer had the elegant, suave, noble, and elegant temperament of the past. He was more extreme, dark, cruel, and bloodthirsty, like a devil walking out of the abyss of purgatory, which made people daunted. What is he doing? The crowd was puzzled. They couldn't understand the state of Ji Tianming at this time. Is this still Ji Tianming? Everyone looked at Ji Tianming with doubts. The person in front of them was completely different from the elegant gentleman Ji Tianming in their impression. It seems that he was also forced into a hurry and began to burn his blood and wanted to fight to the death with Fanwuja, someone guessed, looking into the void. At this time, Fanwuja still stood in the same place without moving a bit, and opposite Fanwuja was Ji Tianming's extremely embarrassed figure. The next moment, Ji Tianming's figure turned into a stream of light again and rushed towards Fanwuja. This scene made many people's hearts beat wildly. Is Ji Tianming crazy? He was at a disadvantage just now, but now he took the initiative to attack. When Fanwuja saw Ji Tianming coming again, a cold and sharp light flashed across his eyes. He was now wearing the quasi-emperor cassock and was not afraid at all. However, at this moment, what he did not expect was that Ji Tianming suddenly burst out with a monstrous demonic power, and wisps of terrifying demonic energy spread out, covering the space. In the endless demonic energy, a pair of black pupils stared at Fanwuja, revealing endless evil intentions. The corners of his mouth outlined a cold arc, unparalleled. Give me, die. Before the voice fell, a long sword pierced the sky and slashed towards Fanwuja with unparalleled momentum. Fanwuja's expression suddenly stagnated, his eyes widened, and a dark sword light pierced through his chest, and blood bloomed instantly, dyeing the entire sky red. This. Everyone was stunned, staring at the scene in front of them in shock. At a glance, Fanwuja fell.